These two items were a pearl that could increase one's luck, and a great teleportation talisman that could instantly teleport thousands of miles away. The former was a one-time use treasure, while the latter could be used a total of 3 times. Although they were not treasures that could instantly increase one's cultivation and combat strength, it was undeniable that the value of these two treasures could not be easily measured. Then Jiang Chengxuan told Shen Ruyan about his gains. He told Shen Ruyan everything he had experienced. Shen Ruyan was visibly shocked. She looked at Jiang Chengxuan in disbelief and said, "Husband, you said that you obtained control of that ruin and found a cross-realm array platform, right?" Before Jiang Chengxuan could answer, Shen Ruyan suddenly stood up and walked back and forth for a while. After a while, she looked at Jiang Chengxuan again and said, "You didn't tell anyone about this, did you?" Jiang Chengxuan found her reaction amusing and shook his head. "Of course not. Do you think your husband will be so rash?" To be honest, this was the first time he had seen Shen Ruyan react like this. Shen Ruyan immediately calmed herself down and looked at Jiang Chengxuan in embarrassment. "Husband, you know that I'm not usually like this. However, what you just told me really shocked me." As she spoke, she sat back down beside Jiang Chengxuan. At this moment, Jiang Chengxuan took out the jade slip he had obtained from the sealed stone room and handed it to Shen Ruyan. "Here, wife, take a look at the contents of this jade slip." Shen Ruyan took the jade slip from Jiang Chengxuan and read it carefully. In the end, she heaved a sigh of relief and looked at Jiang Chengxuan. "Husband, what do you want to do next?" Hearing Shen Ruyan's words, Jiang Chengxuan immediately smiled, as expected of the person who understood him the most in the world. Without needing to ask, she knew what was on his mind. He pondered for a moment before answering, "If possible, we can make use of the techniques recorded on the jade slip. This is good for you, me, and this world. Most importantly, if we want to advance to soul formation in the future, we might need the help of this world." Hearing Jiang Chengxuan's words, Shen Ruyan thought about it carefully and nodded in agreement. "That is very true." After a pause, Shen Ruyan continued, "There is something that you and I might be able to do now. If successful, we should be able to gather a lot of luck for ourselves, and even for the entire Jiang family." "Huh, you mean?" Jiang Chengxuan's heart skipped a beat. Shen Ruyan nodded and said, "It's to develop and increase the overall strength of the Jiang nation. With our current identity as nascent soul cultivators, we are qualified to embark on this endeavor." These words immediately made Jiang Chengxuan recall some of his previous thoughts. If a nation or a region wanted to develop and prosper, the first thing it needed was a stable and standardized order. Secondly, it was to break the knowledge monopoly between the upper and lower levels, especially in terms of cultivation resources. The resources in the 9 essences immortal world were limited. If cultivators wanted to improve, they had to work hard. Since it was a competition, why couldn't this competition turn from chaotic to orderly competition? It had to be known that, in this chaotic situation, there were actually many good low-level cultivators who had been buried. If it was before, Jiang Chengxuan would not have cared about such things. But now, since he had already become the lord of the state of Jiang, the ruler of a nation, if he continued to let this happen, he would be one losing in the end. He had to intervene in this mess. At least in the Jiang nation, such chaos had to be strictly forbidden. Jiang Chengxuan looked at Shen Ruyan and asked, "In your opinion, what should we do next?" Shen Ruyan smiled and said, "I'm sure you've had ideas, haven't you? But since you're asking, I'll just tell you. In my opinion, the first thing we have to reconstruct is the rules in the state of Jiang. Especially robbing and killing, they have to be eliminated. Secondly, it will be best if we can build a place for all low-level cultivators to study. Everything from cultivation to arts need to be included. The study duration can be extended for 10 years. 10 years later, if they can meet the standards set by us, they can enter a higher-level place to study. If they can't meet the standards, we can arrange different positions according to their personal performance. It's up to them to choose whether to stay or leave." "Well, that's all I can think of for the time being. Husband, you can consider it again when the time comes." "Agrees too." It had to be said that Shen Ruyan's suggestion was very pertinent. If they could really implement this, the environment of the state of Jiang would change drastically in less than a few decades. At that time, the entire Jiang nation would probably be more than 10 times stronger than now. Therefore, as the owners of the state of Jiang, they would be benefited greatly from this plan. In the past, they did not have the strength. Now, since they already had the strength, they naturally had to pay attention to this matter. It could be imagined that during the implementation process, they would definitely encounter many objections. There might even be people who did not cooperate. But so what? In this cultivation world where power spoke the loudest, as the strongest cultivators in the state of Jiang, did they have to worry about their opposition? A few days later, Jiang Chengxuan sent a message to Tang Beisheng, Jiang Reni, and all the higher-ups of the Jiang family, including Shen Yuanlong, Shen Daoming, and the other cultivators of the Shen family. They all came to the Xunaming Peak where Jiang Chengxuan and Shen Ruyan were. Jiang Chengxuan did not hide anything and told everyone what he wanted to do next. When everyone heard this, their reaction was as expected. They were all shocked. Everyone looked at each other, but no one took the initiative to speak. Obviously, no one had seen this plan coming from Jiang Chengxuan. After a long time, as the head of the family, Jiang Reni was the first to break the silence and say to Jiang Chengxuan, "Granduncle, I wonder if there's anything we need to cooperate with next." Hearing his words, everyone else present suddenly reacted. Now that Jiang Chengxuan and Shen Ruyan had called all of them here and told them that they were definitely not here to ask for their opinion, let alone accept any form of objection. The only thing they needed to do was cooperate, unconditionally. For a moment, they all expressed their willingness to contribute to this reform. Among them was Supreme Elder Tang Beisheng. No one knew better than him how powerful Jiang Chengxuan and Shen Ruyan had become. At the same time, he knew very well that in the state of Jiang, as long as Jiang Chengxuan and his wife wanted to do something, they were unstoppable. The only difference was how long it would take. Seeing everyone's reaction, Jiang Chengxuan immediately nodded in satisfaction. At that moment, he began to assign missions. He first let everyone go to the various sects and families and let their representatives come to Mount Mystic Tai in half a month. In addition, he asked everyone in the clan to form a law enforcement department to eliminate all the troublemakers in the state of Jiang. The leader was none other than his and Shen Ruyan's personal disciple, Jiang Anren. What was worth mentioning was that, after decades of traveling, Jiang Anren's cultivation had already reached the mid-stage of Golden Core. Even some late-stage Golden Core cultivators were not her match. At this moment, when she heard Jiang Chengxuan's instructions, she immediately bowed and accepted the order. After that, Jiang Chengxuan asked Liu Linglong, Jiang Rendo, Jiang Yuncheng, and the others to organize some cultivation techniques that could be taught to outsiders in the family. He also asked them to organize a group of disciples who were willing to teach others as soon as possible. Huang Linger, who had already returned, took the initiative to take on this job. She expressed that she was willing to contribute to this matter and be a teacher. Jiang Chengxuan and Shen Ruyan naturally agreed. In this way, the framework of the entire matter was immediately established by Jiang Chengxuan and his partner. Half a month later, when the representatives of all the sects and families in the state of Jiang arrived at Mount Mystic Tai, Jiang Chengxuan and Shen Ruyan personally attended the meeting and told them about his plan. The situation was the same as half a month ago. When these people heard what Jiang Chengxuan and Shen Ruyan were going to do, they were all shocked. However, unlike the reaction of the Jiang family, someone questioned Jiang Chengxuan and Shen Ruyan on the spot and asked if this was inappropriate. It was the Feng family of the Yan nation, a Golden Core family. In response, all the Jiang family cultivators present looked at the Feng family with pity. This was because in the next moment, a terrifying pressure that was enough to make anyone present kneel suddenly erupted from Jiang Chengxuan's body. Rumble! In an instant, the sky above Mount Mystic Tai became dark. The expressions of the Feng family members, who had just spoken, changed drastically. Arg! At the same time, the leader of the Feng family immediately spat out a mouthful of blood and fell to the ground. He was severely injured on the spot. The other Feng family members were not doing well either. All of them were either injured on the primordial spirit level or had their dharmic powers flowing in reverse and their meridians damaged. They were in a sorry state. This instantly caused the originally noisy scene to become extremely quiet. Everyone looked at Jiang Chengxuan nervously. Jiang Chengxuan looked indifferent. His gaze slowly swept across everyone present. In the end, he slowly said, Let me ask you again, who opposes, who agrees? This time, no one dared to raise any objections. Hu Dambai from the Jade Water Sword Pavilion was the first to speak. Senior Jiang, our Jade Water Sword Pavilion is willing to cooperate with you. Zheng Pelong of the Ganyang sect cupped his fists and said, our Ganyang sect is also willing to cooperate with you. My Heavenly Yue sect is the same. The same goes for our North Cloud sect. For a moment, all the sects and families present expressed their willingness to cooperate. Good. It was only at this moment that a faint smile slowly appeared on Jiang Chengxuan's face. He nodded slightly. In that case, I'll have to trouble everyone. I request everyone to act in accordance with the requirements my Jiang family set up, and do not pay lip service while secretly opposing. If not, then do not blame me for being ruthless and disregarding our past relationships in my dealings with you. With that, Jiang Chengxuan and Shen Ruyan didn't stay any longer. With a flash, they had already disappeared from everyone's sight. At this moment, everyone who was originally worried heaved a sigh of relief. Especially the Feng family. Without a word, they went straight to Jiang Reni and said impatiently, Family head Jiang, please tell me the exact process. I'll definitely follow Senior Jiang's instructions. Seeing the reaction of the Feng family, the others present were a little stunned. However, they quickly came back to their senses and walked up to Jiang Reni one after another. They began to ask about the details they needed to pay attention to and more specific content. Shunaming Peak. Shen Ruyan looked at the scene in the reception peak below and couldn't help but turn to look at Jiang Chengxuan with a smile. Husband, it seems like you scared them quite a bit just now. From the looks of it, our plan will go smoothly. Jiang Chengxuan nodded slightly. I hope they don't do anything unwise. Otherwise, I'll have no choice but teach them a lesson. At the same time, I'll also ask fellow Taoist Tang to help me pay attention to this matter. With him around, there shouldn't be any accidents. At this point, Jiang Chengxuan glanced at Shen Ruyan and smiled. Wife, everything that needs to be arranged is almost done. Why don't we enter seclusion together? We can also digest the gains from this trip to the ruins. Indeed. The two of them had a lot to do during this seclusion. For example, Shen Ruyan had tasks such as refining true treasures, comprehending divine powers, and improving her cultivation. Jiang Chengxuan was the same. He needed to raise his deep earth halberd to the level of a true treasure. In addition, he also wanted to use the Tiankui grass and other spiritual items obtained from the ruin to undergo body tempering. If there was still time, he wanted to study how to repair the spiritual vein. In short, time was indeed very tight for the two of them. Therefore, the two of them did not dare to delay at all. After entering the cave abode together, they began to enter seclusion. Time passed quickly. In the blink of an eye, 5 years had passed. In the past 5 years, many teaching venues were built according to Jiang Chengxuan's request. The name was also designated as Dao Seeking Academy according to Jiang Chengxuan's request. The academy was divided into 3 levels, elementary, middle, and high. In a low-level academy, what was taught was mainly the basics of cultivation, as well as the relevant knowledge and essentials from the early to mid-stage Qi refinement. As long as you could reach the mid-stage of Qi refinement within the specified time, or after completing a certain assessment, he could continue to study in the academy. You could also apply to study in a mid-level academy if you met the requirements. In the mid-level academy, the main content was about cultivation from the mid-stage to the late stage of Qi refinement. Other than that, it also involved a lot of knowledge about spells and techniques. There would also be a rough mention of the cultivation arts. After advancing to the high-level academy, you would be arranged many missions to go out and train to accumulate enough resources for the future foundation establishment realm. As long as you accumulated enough contribution points, the foundation establishment pill needed to break through to the foundation establishment realm would not be a problem. There was also no need to worry about whether others would snatch the pill away from you after it, because no one in the academy would dare to do such a thing. If found, their cultivation would be abolished at best. At worst, they would be killed directly. They might even implicate their families. As long as you could successfully reach foundation establishment, you would have the chance to choose to join a sect or family. Of course, this choice was bilateral. You couldn't force a sect to accept you if they didn't want to. Of course, it was not as if there were no obstacles during the implementation process of this new system. However, that kind of obstacles was not worth mentioning in front of absolute power the Jiang couple possessed. At this moment, the first batch of new students who came to the Tao Seeking Academy looked around curiously. Most of these new students were low-level independent cultivators and ordinary mortals who had been tested to have spiritual roots. There was no lack of disciples of some large sects and families. They looked at the tall buildings and the majestic mountains and sensed the dense spiritual qi around them. Here, there was a faint aura of dignity that subtly pervaded the atmosphere. Even those disciples from large sects and families could not help but feel deep reverence. At this moment, an honest-looking youth couldn't help but say, "Are we going to live here for 10 years from today?" Hearing his words, a foundation establishment disciple of the Jiang family who was in charge of orienting this batch of new students could not help but turn to look at him and smile. "To be precise, you have to cultivate here for 10 years. I've already told you about it. If you can study diligently and achieve something, you can advance all the way to a mid-level or even a high-level academy and reach foundation establishment realm. At that time, you will build yourself a strong footing in the cultivation world. In the future, after being admitted to a family or a sect, you will have access to their inheritances and will have a bright future. So, study hard. This is the only chance for you to change your fate. It's also an opportunity specially created by my ancestor for you. I hope you won't let this opportunity go to waste." Hearing these words, the children and youth looked abnormally serious. Those who chose to come here were all sensible, especially those children who were independent cultivators at the bottom of the hierarchy. They knew even more deeply how rare the opportunity in front of them was. "I have to seize this opportunity and try to change my life and my family's." An incomparably determined youth clenched his fists and swore in his heart. Boom! Just as the Jiang Family Foundation establishment disciple brought this group of new students to the central square of the academy, powerful auras suddenly approached from afar. Soon, figures appeared on the platform in the square. At the center was a beautiful woman in a white dress. It was like a fairy from the 9 heavens descending to the mortal world. All the new students watched in a daze. Even those disciples from large sects were no exception. They had never seen such a perfect woman. That figure and facial features simply did not belong to the mortal world. "Greetings, Academy Master." At this moment, the powerful figures present bowed to the woman in a white dress in the center of the platform. 2. Seeing this, the new students immediately came back to their senses and bowed to the white-dressed woman. "Greetings, Academy Master." "Good, all of you raise," the woman in the white dress said softly. However, her voice seemed to be ringing in everyone's ears, like the sound of a bird's chirp. At the same time, they could clearly feel a very gentle force straightening their bent backs. At this moment, the woman in the white dress said, "I believe you don't need me to elaborate on the rules. Here, I just want to say one thing. Regardless of whether you have mutant spiritual roots, 2 spiritual roots, 3 spiritual roots, 4 spiritual roots, or even 5 spiritual roots, as long as you don't give up on yourself in my Tao Seeking Academy, you will always have a chance. I hope that from today onwards, you will be proud to be a student of my Tao Seeking Academy. And I also hope that in the future, my Tao Seeking Academy will be proud to have a student like you." After saying this, the woman in the white dress did not stay any longer. Her figure slowly disappeared. Seeing this, the instructors immediately bowed again. "Farewell, Academy Master." After a while, some students asked curiously about the Academy Master's identity. At this moment, the Jiang family's foundation establishment disciple said with admiration, "You guys don't know yet, right? Our Academy Master is the personal disciple of our Jiang family's ancestors. At the same time, she's also a famous golden core in the state of Jiang. It's said that wherever she goes, all demons and demonic cultivators will flee in all directions. It's actually the personal disciple of that nascent soul ancestor." All the students were shocked. They did not expect that the nascent soul old ancestor would actually send his personal disciple to be the Academy Master of their Tao Seeking Academy. From this, it could be seen that the old ancestor placed great importance on this matter. At this moment, no matter who it was, even those disciples from large sects and families could not help but feel a passion burning in their hearts. Time passed quickly. In the blink of an eye, it was more than 10 years later. In the past 10 years, the development of the Tao Seeking Academy had become faster and faster. There were already several batches of new students entering the school. The earliest batch even completed their studies in the low level 10 years ago and successfully entered the mid-level curriculum. In addition, the order in the entire Jiang nation became more and more stable. At least on the surface, not many people dared to openly kill and snatch treasures. Even if there were occasionally, they could only hide in the shadows and not really dare to appear. Because those who did were all met with misfortunes. As the order of the entire Jiang nation changed, and people's hearts gradually gathered due to the influence of the Tao Seeking Academy, the luck of the human race in the state of Jiang also soared rapidly. Yang Chengxuan, who had just ended his seclusion, felt this the most. This was because, be it refining his intrinsic Dharma treasure, the deep earth halberd, or using the Tiankui grass to undergo body tempering, he found everything progressing smoothly without any obstacles. It had been almost 20 years. His deep earth halberd had successfully advanced to level 5 true treasure. Including his body tempering cultivation, with the help of the Tiankui grass and other body tempering spiritual items, he successfully advanced to the mid-stage of level 5. Moreover, he had also gained some understanding of how to repair the damaged spiritual veins. As long as there were enough materials, he was confident enough to repair some low-level spiritual veins. Of course, he would only know if he could succeed after putting it into practice. However, according to Jiang Chengxuan's estimation, the probability of success was about 60 to 70%. Husband. At that moment, the door of Shen Ruyan's cultivation room suddenly opened. Shen Ruyan walked out. As soon as she appeared, Jiang Chengxuan sensed the change in her aura and was surprised. "Madam, your cultivation." "Yeah." Shen Ruyan nodded with a smile. "I consumed that human lightning fruit and broke through 2 levels in a row. Moreover, all my divine powers and true treasures have increased greatly." "Then congratulations, wife." Jiang Chengxuan congratulated sincerely. Then the couple chatted for a while. After a while, Jiang Anren and Jiang Reni, among others, arrived to report on the developments of the past 20 years, particularly about the Tao Seeking Academy. The couple listened very seriously. After a while, Jiang Reni's face revealed a hint of hesitation. Jiang Chengxuan saw his abnormality and immediately asked, "Reni, what's wrong?" Jiang Reni hesitated again, but in the end he said to the two of them, "Granduncle Su Kaiyan, Elder Su, from the Shen family passed away 3 years ago." Elder Su passed away. Jiang Chengxuan and Shen Ruyan were stunned when they suddenly heard this news. Then, they fell silent. Su Kaiyan was an old friend they were quite familiar with in the past. Now that they suddenly heard the news of his death, it naturally stirred their emotions. At their cultivation level, their mental state was already very strong. However, having a strong mental state did not mean that they did not have the emotions that humans should have. It was not like they had become a block of wood or ice while cultivating that were indifferent to the departure of his old friends and family. In the end, the increase in cultivation and mental state only allowed them to see the truth of this world more clearly and comprehend the Tao deeper. When looking at problems, they would judge, think, analyze, and make choices or decisions that were more beneficial to themselves and people around them. However, they were definitely not like the demonic beasts that didn't have feelings. Nor was being emotionless the pursuit of the couple in the journey of their cultivation. "Tomorrow, let's go back together and pay our respects to Elder Su." At this moment, Jiang Chengxuan turned to Shen Ruyan and said, he did not think that with his current cultivation, status, and identity, there would be any problem with paying tribute to a cultivator who was only at Violet Palace. The current him was no longer bound by notions of status or hierarchy. His heart and actions were free from the constraints of such worldly distinctions. After all, a significant aspect of his cultivation was the pursuit of freedom and ease. Shen Ruyan was the same as Jiang Chengxuan. When she heard Jiang Chengxuan's words, she immediately nodded. Actually, there was something else they didn't say. As Su Kaiyan passed away, the old friends, relatives, and friends they were once familiar with should not have much lifespan left. If they failed to make a breakthrough in their cultivation within the given time, they too might inevitably face the fate of passing away in 100 years. Even if they were given life-extending spiritual items. The next day, Yang Chengxuan and Shen Ruyan arrived at the Shen family as promised. Because they had already informed Shen Yuanlong and Shen Dayaming before they came, they did not attract much attention from the Shen family disciples. Soon, the four of them arrived in front of Su Qian's tombstone. Cultivator Su Qingchen. As an elder and core member of the Shen family, Su Qian's tombstone was naturally placed at the heart of the Shen family cemetery. Jiang Chengxuan and Shen Ruyan stood before it in silence. After a while, Shen Ruyan turned to Shen Yuanlong and Shen Dayaming and asked, "Uncle, brother, did Elder Su ever take any disciples?" Shen Yuanlong shook his head. Elder Su dedicated his life to our Shen family. He neither had his own children nor took any disciples. However, many of our younger family members learned array formations from him. They can be considered his indirect disciples. Then let's arrange for them to pay respects here when they can. Our family's current status owes much to Elder Su's help, Shen Ruyan suggested thoughtfully. Then she took out a jade bottle and handed it to Shen Dayaming. "Brother, there are spiritual items in this jade bottle that can help cultivators form their core. From the looks of it, your cultivation base is about to reach the threshold of the core formation stage. If you need anything in the future, you can tell me directly." Shen Dayaming, naturally, wouldn't refuse his sister's good intentions. He accepted the jade bottle from Shen Ruyan with a smile and nodded. "Don't worry, if I really need anything, I won't stand on ceremony with you." "Yeah." Shen Ruyan nodded. After that, Jiang Chengxuan and Shen Ruyan stayed in the Shen family for 2 days, bidding farewell to Shen Yuanlong and Shen Dayaming. After leaving the Shen family, Jiang Chengxuan and Shen Ruyan did not return to the Jiang family. Instead, they took out their communication jade talismans and sent messages to perfected Lord Chuan Yang and perfected Lord Flowing Snow, planning to attend the exchange meeting at Everlasting Palace as agreed 20 years ago. If possible, they planned to go with perfected Lord Chuan Yang and the others. After sending the message, they received a response not long after. The group agreed to meet at a place called Bayang Forest. At that time, they would head to the Everlasting Palace together. From where they were, it would take Jiang Chengxuan and Shen Ruyan about 3 days to fly to the Bayang Forest. Originally, the couple thought that they would be the first to arrive. In the end, when they arrived at the Bayang Forest, they realized that perfected Lord Flowing Snow had arrived before them. Perfected Lord Flowing Snow went forward to greet Jiang Chengxuan and Shen Ruyan. The two sides quickly exchanged pleasantries. It had been 20 years since they last met, and perfected Lord Flowing Snow's cultivation had clearly improved. She had already broken through from the original 4th level of nascent soul to the 5th level. And this was all thanks to the trip to the ruin back then. By the way, fellow Taoist Jiang, fellow Taoist Shen. At that moment, perfected Lord Flowing Snow seemed to have thought of something and looked at the couple with a solemn expression. "In the past 10 years, I realized that the number of cultivators who have fallen to the demonic path in the state of Lan is gradually increasing. Moreover, their methods of concealment are extremely sophisticated. Without a significant difference in cultivation, it would be virtually impossible to detect them. You know if similar situations are occurring in your state of Jiang as well." Hearing perfected Lord Flowing Snow's words, Jiang Chengxuan and Shen Ruyan could not help but be surprised. To be honest, although such a situation existed in the state of Jiang, it was not especially common. However, on second thought, the couple roughly understood what was going on. This was probably related to the way they had been governing the state of Jiang over the years. In the entire state of Jiang, not only the demonic cultivators, but even the survival space for rogue cultivators was extremely limited. Under these circumstances, unless someone was deliberately providing shelter, it was quite difficult for demonic cultivators to survive in the state of Jiang. Jiang Chengxuan and Shen Ruyan believed that not many people would dare to do such a thing under their noses. The couple still had some confidence in this. However, perfected Lord Flowing Snow's words reminded them again. After this matter was over and they returned, they needed to put in more effort and try their best to eliminate all possible living space for those demonic cultivators. Just as the 3 of them were talking about this, a few more streaks of light suddenly flew over from the distant sky. Jiang Chengxuan and the other 2 immediately turned around. Perfected Lord Chuan Yang, Yan Wushwang and perfected Lord Star Sea appeared in their vision. When the 3 of them approached, the 2 sides greeted each other. After a while, Perfected Lord Chuan Yang asked the same question as perfected Lord Flowing Snow. It was about the increase in the number of cultivators who had fallen to the demonic path in recent years. In response, perfected Lord Star Sea, who was in the state of Kang, said that such a situation was also taking place in his place. This immediately made the expressions of the few people present turn slightly solemn, because they all realized a problem. The current situation indicated that something was about to happen. It seems that the demonic calamity that happens every 1,200 years is about to arrive. Affected Lord Chuan Yang said in a slightly heavy tone. If I'm not wrong, this demonic calamity should be within these few years. Cultivator Sukingshan too. Hearing this, Jiang Chengxuan, perfected Lord Flowing Snow, and the others had ugly expressions. They all understood the terrifying implications of the legendary demonic calamity and the potential danger it posed to their lives as nascent soul cultivators. If things went wrong, the nascent soul realm present might die. So, it was very necessary to increase their cultivation and strength as much as possible during this period of time. Soon, the group of 6, including Jiang Chengxuan, didn't linger and transformed into dazzling streaks of light, heading towards Everlasting Palace. 10 days later, Everlasting Palace. When Jiang Chengxuan and his group arrived, they found many nascent soul cultivators already gathered. That included perfected Lord Vast River and the others that Jiang Chengxuan was familiar with. In addition, Pei Daoqi from the Mingjin sect, Liu Guangyao from the Liu family, Lu Yuanchen from the Lu family, and the others had also arrived. At this moment, a female cultivator with a graceful figure, snow-white skin, and picturesque eyebrows appeared in the crowd. Seeing this woman appear, the perfected lords who were talking to each other immediately looked over. Perfected Lord Star Sea, who was beside Jiang Chengxuan and Shen Ruyan, said, "It's Su Qingshan, the eldest disciple of the heavenly Lord Everlasting Mountain." I'm Su Qingshan. Hearing this name, Jiang Chengxuan and Shen Ruyan's hearts skipped a beat. With the circle the two of them were in now, it was naturally impossible for them not to know this first elder of the Everlasting Palace. It was said that this woman was a princess in a mortal country in her early years. Later, Heavenly Lord Everlasting Mountain brought her to the Everlasting Palace and took her in as a personal disciple. In just 18 years, she successfully reached foundation establishment. After that, she only spent 50 years successfully advancing to Violet Palace. In another 100 years, she reached the high-grade Golden Core. However, during the process, it was said that this woman had encountered the first calamity in her life. When her cultivation reached the mid-stage Golden Core, she was ambushed by demonic cultivators. Not only were her meridians injured, but even her Golden Core was shattered because of this, and her cultivation fell back to Violet Palace. If not for the fact that she had sufficient lifespan at that time, that attack would have completely taken her life. However, the shattering of the Golden Core was still a hurdle that all cultivators found difficult to overcome. The most serious thing was the blow to the confidence of the cultivators. It was said that Su Qingshan had once fallen into oblivion. In the end, it was her Shifu, Heavenly Lord Everlasting Mountain, who enlightened her and allowed her to slowly walk out of that shadow. However, because of this, Su Qingshan wasted more than 200 years. It was not until 300 years later that Su Qingshan reached Golden Core again. However, after this tribulation, Su Qingshan seemed to have undergone a complete transformation. Not only had her temperament become more tenacious, but she had also become more humble when dealing with people. Her cultivation advanced by leaps and bounds. In just 100 years, she was on the verge of condensing her nascent soul. In the end, she even condensed an extremely rare heaven nascent soul. In 200 years after that, which was now, Su Qingshan went all the way from the initial stage of nascent soul to the 9th level of nascent soul. At this moment, she looked at everyone present and bowed politely with a smile. "Fellow Taoists, welcome to my Everlasting Palace to participate in this cultivation exchange organized by us." Based on her tone and attitude, if one didn't know about her strength, it would be difficult to associate her with a 9th level nascent soul cultivator. "Fairy Su, you're too polite. It should be our honor to participate in the exchange." At this moment, a nascent soul cultivator spoke. Hearing his words, the others immediately agreed. After a while, Su Qingshan gently raised her hand and pressed it down. When everyone fell silent again, she smiled and said, There's no need for the formalities. Since this is an exchange meeting, there is naturally a segment to exchange cultivation insights. As the host, let me start the exchange by sharing some of my own cultivation insights. As she spoke, Su Qingchen began to share her insights. It had to be said that Su Qingchen was qualified to be called a grand cultivator. Especially after experiencing such setbacks, she was like a phoenix reborn. What she said was naturally very convincing. When the cultivators present heard this, they felt that they had learned a lot. Even Jiang Chengxuan felt that some of the things she said were very enlightening to him. Even Shen Ruyan agreed with some of her ideas. Of course, she wouldn't share the core cultivation techniques that she cultivated. Most of it was about her experience in cultivation and some theories. Even so, it made many cultivators who came here feel that this trip was worth it. After Su Qingchen finished speaking, it was the other nascent soul cultivators' turn. In the end, Jiang Chengxuan and the others also went on stage to talk about their unique insights. The entire process lasted for a few days. When the exchange ended, Su Qingchen stepped forward again and smiled at everyone. Next, it's time for us to trade treasures. Here, let me continue to make the opening. After saying that, Su Qingchen took out 2 items from her body. One was a level 5 true treasure, the glazed radiant armor. It was a rather extraordinary defensive true treasure. Another item was the warmth-nurturing Jade. It was a spiritual object that could help mid-stage nascent soul cultivators break through. It could be said to be quite precious. When everyone present saw the 2 items that Su Qingchen took out, many people couldn't help but gasp. Clearly, to them, these 2 items could be said to be the most precious of treasures. At this moment, Su Qingchen smiled and said, "I don't think there's a need for me to elaborate on the value of these 2 items. But since these items are intended to start the trading session, anyone interested in an exchange just needs to offer something of equivalent value." As soon as she said this, the eyes of many cultivators present lit up. In the next moment, cultivators spoke one after another, wanting to exchange the 2 items with Su Qingchen. In the end, Su Qingchen's glazed radiant armor was obtained by a nascent soul perfected lord from the Black Sea Pavilion. As for her warmth-nurturing Jade, it was traded by Yan Wuxuang. That made perfected Lord Star Sea envious. He and Yan Wuxuang were both in the mid-stage of nascent soul. Now that Yan Wuxuang had that warmth-nurturing Jade, it might not be long before the Hidden Sword Palace had another late-stage nascent soul cultivator other than perfected Lord Xuan Yang. After that, many cultivators came forward one after another to exchange items. However, there was nothing Jiang Chengxuan and Shen Ruyan needed for the time being, until someone took out a level 5 talisman inheritance. This inheritance contained the crafting methods of 3 level 5 talismans. They were level 5 teleportation talismans, level 5 illusion talismans, and level 5 void talismans. A teleportation talisman could instantly teleport tens of thousands of kilometers. The illusion talisman could make cultivators fall into an illusion and not be able to tell the difference between reality and illusion. The last void talisman was a concealing talisman. As long as you did not use your dharmic power, this item could render your form virtually invisible, making it difficult for cultivators of the same level to detect you. It could be said that these 3 talismans were all support-type talismans. To Jiang Chengxuan, who was a peak level 4 talisman master, it was exactly what he needed the most. As long as he could obtain the method to make those 3 talismans, he might be able to break through in the shortest time possible and reach the level of a level 5 talisman master. Most importantly, he happened to have something that the other party wanted to exchange for. Jiang Chengxuan raised his hand and flipped it. A pure gold flower appeared in his hand. Demonic Calamity. Level 5 Fire Element Nurturing Flower. Fellow Taoist Zin, I wonder if I can exchange this with you for that level 5 talisman inheritance. Jiang Chengxuan looked up at a middle-aged man in a black Taoist robe and asked. The middle-aged man in the black Taoist robe was the person who had taken out the talisman inheritance. His name was Zin Yuanjun. At this moment, when he saw the fire element nurturing flower, his eyes were filled with surprise. This level 5 fire element nurturing flower was a spiritual object that could strengthen a cultivator's divine sense. Especially for cultivators who specialized in fire element cultivation techniques, the effect was even more obvious. Needless to say, this item was also something he urgently needed. He did not bargain with Jiang Chengxuan and immediately nodded. Sure. As he spoke, he exchanged the jade slip containing the talisman inheritance with the level 5 fire element nurturing flower in Jiang Chengxuan's hand. After this exchange, it was Jiang Chengxuan's turn to go on stage. He immediately took out a pile of level 5 demon beast materials and a 3,000-year-old cloud dragon grass. This was a level 5 spiritual item that could help cultivators quickly accumulate dharmic power. The materials on the body of level 5 demon emperors and a cloud dragon grass. I want to use them to exchange for an armored wood vine or a wood earth ganoderma. The two spiritual items mentioned by Jiang Chengxuan were both the main materials used to refine the Eastern Azure Dragon flag. However, after he made his offer, there was no response from those present. Obviously, no one had the two spiritual items that Jiang Chengxuan had mentioned. A moment later, Pei Deaki from the Mingjin sect said to Jiang Chengxuan, "Fellow Taoist Jiang, I have some information about the wood earth ganoderma. If you're interested, I can use it to exchange for your cloud dragon grass." There's information about ganoderma. Jiang Chengxuan couldn't help but frown. To be honest, if it was just a piece of information, it was far from enough to exchange for his cloud dragon grass. Moreover, why should he believe that the information provided by Pei Deaki was true? As if reading Jiang Chengxuan's thoughts, Pei Deaki continued, "If fellow Taoist Jiang is willing to exchange with me, I can sign a primordial spirit contract with you to ensure that the information I provide you is indeed accurate. In addition, I can give you another 30,000 high-grade spiritual stones. What do you think, fellow Taoist Jiang?" The primordial spirit contract that Pei Deaki mentioned was a contract that was even more binding than the blood oath contract. Moreover, this contract was specially targeted at the primordial spirit of cultivators. Once one violated it, his primordial spirit would be severely injured at best. At worst, his primordial spirit would collapse and he would die on the spot. Since Pei Deaki was willing to sign the primordial spirit contract with him, it meant that the information Pei Deaki provided him this time should not be a problem. At the thought of this, Jiang Chengxuan immediately said to Pei Deaki, "If it's a primordial spirit contract, I have no problem. However, an additional 30,000 high-grade spiritual stones is still not enough. You need an additional 4 high-grade spiritual stones." Hearing Jiang Chengxuan's words, Pei Deaki hesitated for a moment, but in the end he nodded at Jiang Chengxuan. "All right." Soon, under Su Qingqian's witness, the two of them signed a primordial spirit contract and completed this transaction. When Jiang Chengxuan returned to his seat, he immediately took out the jade slip given by Pei Deaki. After reading the contents of the jade slip, Jiang Chengxuan immediately frowned. The jade slip contained information about the whereabouts of the wood earth ganoderma. It was not in the territory of the northern border, but in a place called the Sunset Secret Realm at the eastern end. The entire 9 Essences world was divided into 5 regions. They were the eastern end, the southern wilderness, the western desert, the central plain, and the northern border where they were currently located. The distance between them could be said to be extremely far. It was not an exaggeration to say that if they wanted to go to the eastern end from the northern border, with the couple's current cultivation, it would take them at least a few years. Fortunately, there were super-large teleportation arrays between the 5 regions. With this, they could save a lot of time. But there was another problem. The Sunset Secret Realm mentioned in the Jade Slip was a place controlled by the few soul formation forces in the eastern end. It would only open once every 300 years. Unless there was a recommendation letter, foreign nascent soul cultivators would not be allowed to enter that secret realm without paying a sufficient price. Moreover, even if foreign nascent soul cultivators could enter that secret realm, they still had to hand over 30% of their gains in the secret realm to the soul formation forces when they came out. 30% might not seem like a lot, but the selection of the items was up to them. What if they happened to take a fancy to what you needed the most? Wouldn't it be all for nothing? So, to enter that secret realm, one had to have a recommendation letter. Otherwise, the risk was really uncontrollable. At this moment, Jiang Chengxuan's expression inevitably turned somewhat grim. It couldn't be said that he was cheated, but his mood was certainly not good either. He originally thought that it would be somewhere in the northern border. In the end, it was in the eastern end, and it was in such a secret area. If not for the fact that the two sides had already signed a primordial spirit contract, Jiang Chengxuan would really suspect that the information Pei Deaki gave him was fake. "Husband, what's wrong? Is there a problem?" At this moment, Shen Ruyan, who was beside him, noticed the strange expression on Jiang Chengxuan's face and immediately asked with concern. Jiang Chengxuan shook his head. "It has nothing, I'm just a little unhappy." As he spoke, he told Shen Ruyan about the contents of the jade slip. After Shen Ruyan heard that, a trace of coldness flashed across her beautiful eyes. She said, "Husband, Pei Deaki is clearly lying to you on purpose. Let's see how I deal with him later." Jiang Chengxuan shook his head again. "There's no need to deliberately find trouble with him. After all, it's my fault for not being careful enough. I can't blame anyone else. We just need to know that this person can't be befriended in the future. If there's really a chance, I'll get back at him." "All right then." Hearing that, Shen Ruyan didn't insist. She knew her husband's character. Since he had said so, as his wife, she only needed to follow his wishes. Following that, more and more people stepped forward. Jiang Chengxuan and Shen Ruyan also took the opportunity to exchange for some things that they needed. When the last person walked off the stage, the entire trading session came to an end. Buzz. At this moment, an extremely vast aura suddenly descended from the sky. Following that, a white-robed figure appeared in front of everyone. This figure seemed to be between reality and illusion. None of the nascent soul cultivators present could see his face clearly. However, at this moment, Su Qingchen, who was the host, suddenly bowed to the white-robed figure and said respectfully, "Greetings, Shifu." It turned out that the person who appeared in front of everyone was the true ruler of the Everlasting Palace, Heavenly Lord Everlasting Mountain. "Greetings, Heavenly Lord." The group of nascent soul perfected lords also reacted at this moment and immediately bowed to the white-robed figure. "All of you rise." As a gentle voice sounded, everyone present felt a gentle force help them up. This shocked everyone present. It had to be known that there were many nascent soul cultivators present. In the end, Heavenly Lord Everlasting Mountain only used a little power to make their bodies involuntarily straighten. From this, it could be seen that the difference between soul formation and nascent soul was like the difference between heaven and earth. Since this is a cultivation exchange organized by Everlasting Palace, one naturally have to show up. At this moment, Heavenly Lord Everlasting Mountain continued. "Next, let me tell you some of my insights on cultivation." Hearing Heavenly Lord Everlasting Mountain's words, everyone perked up. One had to know that Heavenly Lords were all mysterious beings. Usually it was extremely difficult to even see them, let alone listen to their speech. Soon, Heavenly Lord Everlasting Mountain's speech began. This time, he was talking about the cultivation pertaining to the nascent soul realm. Many people were mesmerized by the lecture. Some even had the opportunity to break through while listening to the lecture, attracting the attention of many people and envy. Although Jiang Chengxuan did not improve his cultivation, what Heavenly Lord Everlasting Mountain said this time also answered many of his doubts, making him clearer about the path he had to take next. On the other hand, perfected Lord Flowing Snow, who was beside him, seemed to have gained some incredible enlightenment during the process of listening to the speech. She actually fell into a profound state. Jiang Chengxuan knew that this was an epiphany. This was definitely a huge opportunity for a cultivator. By the time perfected Lord Flowing Snow came out of her epiphany, her cultivation should have improved. This lecture lasted for a total of 3 days. After talking about the cultivation pertaining to the nascent soul realm, Heavenly Lord Everlasting Mountain talked about how to advance to soul formation. In short, if a cultivator wanted to advance to soul formation, the first thing they had to do was to let their divine sense reach a certain level to prepare for the transformation. Secondly, they had to have the ability to sense the spiritual chi of heaven and earth. As everyone knew, there were many spiritual QJ of different elements in the world. It included wood, fire, water, earth, metal, lightning, wind, ice, and so on. What they had to do was to sense the spiritual chi of heaven and earth that corresponded to their innate element. Only by doing these two things would you have a chance to make an attempt at soul formation. If you couldn't achieve both of the aforementioned aspects, then entering soul formation would be like chasing a flower reflected in the water or the moon in a mirror, essentially an impossible feat. All right, this lecture will end here. Heavenly Lord Everlasting Mountain said slowly. Next, there's something I need to remind everyone. It's about the demonic calamity in the Nine Essences world. Hearing Heavenly Lord Everlasting Mountain's words, everyone, including Xianxia, couldn't help but perk up. Obviously, at this moment, all the nascent soul cultivators knew about the demonic calamity that happened every 1,200 years. Heavenly Lord Everlasting Mountain continued. According to my calculations, this demonic calamity should erupt in 10 years. What, in 10 years? Everyone could not help but be shocked. Evidently, many people did not know that the demonic calamity was actually so close to them. That's right. Heavenly Lord Everlasting Mountain nodded. Therefore, you have to make more preparations when you go back. This matter is not only related to your own safety, but also the safety of the entire Nine Essences cultivation world. Therefore, we can't be careless at all. After a pause, Heavenly Lord Everlasting Mountain continued. After fellow Taoist Purple Flame and I deduce the approximate location of this demonic calamity, we will inform everyone. At that time, all families and sects above Foundation establishment have to participate unconditionally. If anyone disobeys the order or retreats, I and fellow Taoist Purple Flame will definitely not let them off easily. Heavenly Lord Everlasting Mountain's tone was obviously a little stern. Hearing this, the perfected Lord's present could not help but look very serious. In the end, everyone stood up one after another, indicating that they already knew. At this moment, a perfected Lord suddenly raised his doubts. What if the demon beasts suddenly started a demon beast riot while they were resisting the demonic calamity? It had to be known that at that time, all the strength of the human race would definitely be focused on resisting the demonic calamity. If the demon beasts took advantage of the situation, wouldn't the human race be in danger of being exterminated? The doubts raised by this perfected Lord were also what everyone was worried about. After all, the demon beasts had fought with the human race for so many years. They would definitely not miss such an excellent opportunity. The most terrifying thing was that if the demon beasts directly joined forces with the demonic cultivators, the human race would really be in danger of being destroyed. Heavenly Lord Everlasting Mountain didn't look too worried. On the contrary, a faint smile appeared on his lips. Although they couldn't see his face, everyone could clearly feel that Heavenly Lord Everlasting Mountain was smiling. If the demon beasts really dare to do so at that time, then I must confess it will be exactly what I'm hoping for. Huh? Everyone, including Jiang Chengxuan, was stunned when they heard Heavenly Lord Everlasting Mountain's words. But soon, Jiang Chengxuan seemed to have realized something, and his eyes flashed. Did the Heavenly Lord Everlasting Mountain say that because? Just as this thought flashed through his mind, Heavenly Lord Everlasting Mountain continued. Do you know why the demonic calamity in the cultivation world of the Nine Essences only erupts once every 1,200 years? Before anyone could answer, Heavenly Lord Everlasting Mountain continued. That's because the will of heaven and earth in the Nine Essences immortal world is strongly stopping the other party's invasion. As he spoke, Heavenly Lord Everlasting Mountain pointed at the sky. To the will of the world in my Nine Essences world, those demonic cultivators who tried to invade it and even tried to turn it into a pure demonic territory are the targets it wants to eliminate. At this moment, if the demon beasts, who are natives to the Nine Essences world, take the opportunity to deal with us humans, they will be indirectly helping those demonic cultivators. Think about it. What kind of problem will the demon beasts face at that time? As soon as Heavenly Lord Everlasting Mountain said this, many cultivators present fell into deep thought. They seemed to have grasped the key point. However, they could not tell what the key was for the time being. In the end, Xianxia, who was his eldest disciple, replied, if the demon beasts really take the opportunity to attack us humans, while we resist those demonic cultivators, from the current situation, it's very likely that the demon beasts would be despised by the will of the Nine Essences world. The entire demon beast race will be in trouble. At that time, not to mention those low-level demon beasts, even level 5 demon emperors or even level 6 demon sovereigns will have the risk of suffering chi deviation. Xianxia's words resolved the doubts in everyone's hearts. Immediately, everyone looked at Heavenly Lord Everlasting Mountain. Heavenly Lord Everlasting Mountain smiled and nodded. That's right. At the same time, we humans will have more resources available. Not only everyone present, but even I and fellow Taoist Purple Flame would have the opportunity to break through. Furthermore, after this, they will no longer be a great enemy of our human race. I see. Everyone was enlightened. Unfortunately, at this point, Heavenly Lord Everlasting Mountain shook his head regretfully. The demon beasts won't really be so stupid. At that time, they will definitely hide and not participate in the battle between us and those demonic cultivators. Fortunately, in the 200 years that follow, they won't dare to do much against our human race. Otherwise, with such a continuous depletion from fighting the demonic cultivators, our human race will indeed have a hard time recovering. The demon beast race didn't dare to attack their human race in the 200 years following the demonic calamity. Hearing Heavenly Lord Everlasting Mountain's words, everyone present, including Jiang Chengxuan, could not help but feel relieved. Could this also be related to the so-called will of heaven and earth? As creatures of this world, as the children of this world, after expending a tremendous price to repel the invading enemy, the will of this world, which could be considered as their nurturing parents, would naturally cast a lot of attention upon them. The fortune of their human race would certainly increase under such circumstances. If at this time anyone dared to bully the favored children of this world, then they would inevitably incur the dissatisfaction of this world. The result naturally would be obvious. As for why 200 years later the demonic race dared to trouble their human race again, it was probably because by that time, the attention of the will of this world on their human race would have dropped to a very low level. After all, the will of heaven and earth itself needs recovery. It cannot always take care of the human race at all times. It seems that this should be the main reason why their human race's situation is so difficult, yet always manages to maintain a relative balance with the demon beasts. However, this balance is not permanent. As the power of the will of heaven and earth is gradually weakened, the support it can offer to their human race will inevitably become less and less. When the will of this world finally falls into a deep slumber or is weakened to a certain extent, their human race will then enter the most difficult and darkest period. However, Heavenly Lord Everlasting Mountain did not mention these things. Very few could actually reach this level of understanding on their own. At least in Jiang Chengxuan's view, if he hadn't known about the terrifying existence in the outer world and various insider details, he would have found it difficult to think so far ahead. Yet precisely because he realized this, his mood became somewhat heavy. According to this situation, the time left for them, or for the entire human race, was not much. Once the will of heaven and earth truly falls asleep, their human race, and even this world, will fall into an immense crisis. Mountain Human Tribulation, Everlasting Jade Talisman. 2. Heavenly Lord Everlasting Mountain didn't say anything else. As his figure gradually disappeared in front of everyone, the cultivation exchange organized by the Everlasting Heavenly Palace almost ended. Just as Jiang Chengxuan and the others were about to leave the Everlasting Palace with perfected Lord Chuan Yang and the others, the first elder Su Qingchen suddenly called out to them, "Fellow Taoist Chuan Yang and fellow Taoist Jiang and Shen, please wait for a moment." Seeing Su Qingchen stopping them, Jiang Chengxuan, Chuan Yang, and the others all looked surprised. Su Qingchen, with a slight smile on her face, looked at Jiang Chengxuan, Shen, Ruyan, and Xuan Yang and said, "My Shifu wishes to meet you. If the three of you have no other urgent matters to attend to, could you come with me to meet my Shifu? Heavenly Lord Everlasting Mountain wants to see us." Jiang Chengxuan and the other two were tempted. In the next moment, they looked at each other. Then perfected Lord Chuan Yang smiled and nodded. "Since Senior Everlasting Mountain wants to see us, we'll naturally go. Please lead the way for us." Su Qingchen smiled and nodded. Then she brought Jiang Chengxuan and the other two to where her Shifu, Heavenly Lord Everlasting Mountain, was. In the Everlasting Hall. This was where Heavenly Lord Everlasting Mountain lived, and it was also where he used to cultivate in seclusion. When Jiang Chengxuan and perfected Lord Chuan Yang arrived under Su Qingchen's lead, they realized that Heavenly Lord Everlasting Mountain had revealed his true appearance. He was a rather refined-looking man. At this moment, when he saw Jiang Chengxuan and the other two arrive, a smile appeared on his face. "You're here." With that said, He turned to perfected Lord Xianxia and suddenly said, "Young fellow Xianxia, if I'm not wrong, you're probably going to try to break through to soul formation soon, right?" "What?" Hearing Heavenly Lord Everlasting Mountain's words, Jiang Chengxuan, Shen Ruyan, and Su Qingchen were all shocked. Especially Su Qingchen. As the first disciple of Heavenly Lord Everlasting Mountain, no one knew better than her how difficult it was for a nascent soul to break through to soul formation. At least until now, she had not grasped the slightest opportunity to advance to soul formation. It could also be said that she had no clue. However, perfected Lord Xianxia was about to break through to soul formation. However, this did not mean that he would definitely be able to break through to soul formation. However, perfected Lord Xianxia was already ahead of all the nascent soul cultivators. Perfected Lord Xianxia clearly did not expect Heavenly Lord Everlasting Mountain to see through his situation. He did not hide anything and nodded. "That's right. If there are no accidents, I should try to break through to soul formation within 3 years." These words shocked Jiang Chengxuan, Su Qingchen, and the others again. Since perfected Lord Xianxia was so sure, it seemed like he was quite confident in doing it. However, Heavenly Lord Everlasting Mountain was silent for a moment. Then he sighed and said, "Have you decided? You can put it off a little longer. If you can wait until the end of this demonic calamity, your chances of success will be higher." Perfected Lord Xianxia shook his head. "That won't be necessary." After a pause, perfected Lord Xianxia continued, "If I retreat because of fear, I will sever my Tao heart. Even after the demonic calamity, my chances of success would still not be too high. Moreover, doing that is not in line with my Tao." "True." Heavenly Lord Everlasting Mountain stared at perfected Lord Xianxia for a long time. After a while, he nodded slightly. "If that's the case, are you prepared for the human tribulation?" It was different from breaking through to golden core and nascent soul. To advance to soul formation, the calamity he had to experience was not the heavenly tribulation, but the human tribulation. At that time, anyone who has a grudge against you and is still alive will immediately notice that you are about to break through to soul formation. Just like debtors, they would come after him to collect the debt. As long as they appeared, it would trigger all kinds of negative emotions in your heart. Guilt, regret, fear, self-blame, and so on. If you can overcome these emotions, the inner demon will be eliminated. If you can't or even sink deeper into these emotions, the inner demon will grow stronger. It will devour your entire body and mind, ruining your hundreds or thousands of years of cultivation. In fact, your body and soul will be destroyed, and you will never reincarnate. And this is only one of the human tribulations. Other than those who once had a grudge against you, there will naturally be many people in this world who don't want to see you reach soul formation, including the demon beasts. Moreover, you will have almost no ability to resist their attacks. Therefore, in order to successfully pass the human tribulation and become a heavenly lord, a guardian was indispensable. This was also the main reason why most cultivators had a Tao companion. Without the protection and help of fellow Taoists, there were very, very few people who could walk the path alone and achieve great success in the end. Perfected Lord Xianxia could not help but nod when he heard Heavenly Lord Everlasting Mountain's words. "I should be 90% confident in the first wave of human tribulation. On the other hand, for the second wave of the human tribulation, I might need the help of Senior Everlasting Mountain, Xian, and the other seniors. At that time, I hope you can help me. When I reach soul formation, I will definitely do my best to resist the demonic tribulation with Senior and the others. At the same time, I will definitely not forget your kindness." At the end, perfected Lord Xianxia bowed to Heavenly Lord Everlasting Mountain with an extremely serious expression. When Heavenly Lord Everlasting Mountain saw this, he smiled kindly. "Young fellow Xianxia, there's no need to be so polite. As heavenly lords of the human race, we naturally have the obligation to help you. After all, if you can become a heavenly lord, it will be a good thing for me and fellow Taoist Purple Flame. At the very least, it will relieve us of a lot of burden. At the same time, helping you is also helping our human race. I only hope that after you reach soul formation, you won't forget your identity as a human. In the future, If you encounter juniors who have the chance to advance to soul formation, you can provide them with some protection like us. That's enough. Yes, I will remember your instructions. Good. Heavenly Lord Everlasting Mountain smiled and nodded. As he spoke, his gaze landed on Jiang Chengxuan and Shen Ruyan. I see that your foundation is not bad. In the future, you might be able to make an attempt at the soul formation realm. Therefore, I called you here to form a good relationship with you in advance. Heavenly Lord Everlasting Mountain waved his hand. 2 white jade talismans appeared in front of them. These 2 talismans are called the Everlasting Jade Talisman. They can help you resist a soul formation attack. When you return, you only need to refine this talisman. When you are in dire danger, this talisman will automatically protect its owner. This scene once again shocked Su Qingchen. It was not too shocking that perfected Lord Xuan Yang could break through to soul formation. He didn't expect Jiang Chengxuan and Shen Ruyan to have the potential to reach soul formation in her Shifu's eyes. This was really. While Su Qingchen was secretly shocked, Jiang Chengxuan and Shen Ruyan had already recovered from their senses. Without any hesitation, the couple immediately bowed and thanked Heavenly Lord Everlasting Mountain. Thank you for the treasure, Senior Changshan. However, Heavenly Lord Everlasting Mountain smiled and waved his hand. Don't stand on ceremony with me. You only need to cultivate well. If you have a chance of reaching soul formation in the future, don't forget to protect your people. Formation, Jiang Chengxuan breaks through to level 5 Talisman Master, System Reward. 1. It was obvious that the Heavenly Lord Everlasting Mountain had high hopes for Jiang Chengxuan and his wife. It was the same as Purple Flame and Heavenly Lord Infinite Ocean they had come into contact with that day. What Heavenly Lord Everlasting Mountain and the others cared about was no longer their small sect. Instead, they cared about the human race as a whole. Things like suppressing the younger generation or being afraid that you would threaten their interests when you grew up did not exist. On the contrary, they couldn't wait for a junior to rise and shoulder the responsibility of supporting the human race with them. It was also because of this that the sects and families of the northern border admired and respected Heavenly Lord Everlasting Mountain from the bottom of their hearts. And this admiration and respect was definitely not purely because of their strength. Instead, it stemmed from their character and what they had done for the entire human race. At this moment, the Heavenly Lord Everlasting Mountain did not keep Jiang Chengxuan and the other 2. He immediately asked Su Qingchen to send them away. When Su Qingchen returned, Heavenly Lord Everlasting Mountain couldn't help but look at her and smile. Qingchen, don't you feel pressured, or do you think I think too highly of them? Of course not. Su Qingchen immediately shook her head with a smile. Shifu, you value them because they have a reason to be valued by you. I won't be jealous, let alone resentful. As for feeling pressured, Su Qingchen smiled again and said, what pressure can be greater than when my golden core shattered and my cultivation was obliterated? Although I'm a little envious of their achievements. However, I won't compare myself to them. I just have to cultivate according to my own rhythm. Not bad, not bad. Heavenly Lord Everlasting Mountain nodded in relief. Qingchen, with such a temperament, your future achievements will definitely not be inferior to mine. At that time, come with me to be Xuan Yang's Tao Guardian. Yes, Shifu. Su Qingchen immediately nodded in agreement. At the same time, after Jiang Chengxuan and the others left Everlasting Palace, perfected Lord Xuan Yang also asked them for help. 3 years later, he hoped that the 2 of them could go to the Hidden Sword Palace and be his Tao Guardian. Jiang Chengxuan and Shen Ruyan naturally wouldn't refuse. After flying back for about 10 days, they temporarily separated and returned to their respective sects and families. Jiang Chengxuan and Shen Ruyan returned to Mount Mystic Tai. As soon as they returned, the couple felt that the spiritual qi on the mountain had become abnormally active. Soon, the sky above Mount Mystic Tai began to turn dark, and silver lightning appeared. Is someone about to transcend the tribulation? Seeing this, Jiang Chengxuan and Shen Ruyan were rather happy. Soon, the 2 of them saw Liu Linglong in a pink dress flying out of Mount Mystic Tai. Behind her were Jiang Anren, Shen Yuanlong, Tang Beisheng, and many elders of the Jiang family. Obviously, they were there for Liu Linglong. Seeing this, Jiang Chengxuan and Shen Ruyan looked at each other. The 2 of them immediately flew over. The Jiang family had already prepared very detailed information and precautions regarding how to transcend the tribulation. At the same time, there were many treasures used to transcend the tribulation in the Jiang family. As long as one successfully condensed a golden core, they could obtain these treasures in advance to transcend the tribulation. Therefore, Liu Linglong's tribulation could be said to be quite smooth. There were no accidents. When Liu Linglong returned from her tribulation, Jiang Chengxuan told everyone what he had learned during his trip to the Everlasting Palace. At the same time, he ordered everyone to closely monitor the movements of the demonic cultivators. Once there were any discoveries or traces, they had to be dealt with and resolved immediately. If there was something that could not be resolved, they could inform him immediately. In this regard, everyone naturally accepted the order solemnly. After a while, Jiang Chengxuan and Shen Ruyan returned to Xunaming Peak. Jiang Chengxuan immediately tried to refine a level 5 talisman. He wanted to see if he could successfully break through to level 5 before perfected Lord Chuan Yang advanced to soul formation. Fortunately, when Jiang Chengxuan was about to start making level 5 talismans, he suddenly realized that the fortune talisman brush he had obtained from the system had turned red. This meant that if he used this brush to draw talismans at this moment, then he would possess an enormous amount of luck. Over the years, his fortune talisman brush had changed color dozens of times. Only 9 times did the color change to a red representing good luck, and these 9 times, he had drawn talismans that exceeded his level of talisman making. Now that his fortune talisman brush had turned red again, it should be able to help him advance to level 5. At that moment, Jiang Chengxuan took out a large pile of talisman-making materials. He planned to use these materials to try to draw a level 5 illusion talisman first. This was a talisman that could make a cultivator fall into an illusion. The main reason why he chose to draw this talisman was because it was relatively easy to draw. At the very least, it was less difficult than the teleportation talisman and the void talisman. Formation, Jiang Chengxuan breaks through to level 5 talisman master, system reward 2. He only needed to have a relatively strong primordial spirit cultivation. Coincidentally, Jiang Chengxuan, who had the primordial spirit treasure, the vast heaven divine Jade, and the primordial spirit cultivation method, had already steadily reached the late-stage nascent soul in terms of primordial spirit. The success rate of making this talisman should be several times higher than the teleportation talisman and the void talisman. Swoosh! Several months passed in the blink of an eye. Jiang Chengxuan's talisman-making material suddenly burned. This made Jiang Chengxuan sigh. This was the 4th time he had failed to make the talisman. However, from this, he had gained many experiences and insights. The next time, he should have a success rate of about 20 to 40%. He did not waste time for nothing. After Jiang Chengxuan cleaned up the trash, he took out another set of talisman-making materials. As the fortune talisman brush in his hand lit up, Jiang Chengxuan started drawing the illusion talisman for the 5th time. Time passed day by day. Another few months passed. As a hazy halo in front of Jiang Chengxuan suddenly converged into a jade talisman, a smile finally appeared on Jiang Chengxuan's face. After spending more than half a year, he finally succeeded in drawing this illusion talisman. Ding! At the same time, a familiar system voice sounded in Jiang Chengxuan's mind. Congratulations, host. You have reached level 5 talisman master. You have obtained a death substitution talisman and a level 6 array talisman, the constellation talisman. The death substitution talisman was the same as the talisman he had obtained in the ruin that day. It had the ability to block a death tribulation for its master. As for the level 6 array talisman, the constellation talisman, it was a talisman that worked as an array. Once activated, this talisman could guide the power of the stars in the sky and form a temporary protective array. Under such protection, even a soul formation heavenly lord would not be able to break it in a short period of time. It had to be said that the 2 items rewarded by the system were things he needed very much at the moment. At the critical moment, it could play a huge role. In the next moment, Jiang Chengxuan did not stop making talismans. Instead, he took out a large batch of talisman-making materials from his body. This time, he planned to try drawing a teleportation talisman and a void talisman. These 2 talismans were support-type talismans. However, it was undeniable that if it was successfully drawn, it could also play. a big role at certain times. Just like that, another 2 years passed. Because he had already successfully drawn the illusion talisman, in the next 2 years, after several failures, Jiang Chengxuan finally succeeded in drawing the teleportation talisman and the void talisman. With these two talismans, Jiang Chengxuan's ability to deal with various situations had increased greatly. It was also worth mentioning that Shen Ruyan's brother, Shen Dayuming, had finally formed his golden core half a year ago. His lifespan had increased to 800 years. At the same time, the head of the family, Jiang Reni, Jiang Renquan, Jiang Yuncheng, Jiang Yunru, and the others had also improved greatly. Among them, Jiang Reni and Jiang Yuncheng had successfully advanced to the 9th level of Violet Palace 3 months ago. They could already start preparing for the core formation. If everything went smoothly, the two of them should be able to advance to Golden Core before the demonic calamity. As for Jiang Renquan, Jiang Yunru, and the other juniors of the Jiang family, although their cultivation levels had not reached the core formation bottleneck, they were not far from it. If everything went well, they should have a chance of forming the core in the next few decades. After all, with the Jiang family's current strength, it was not difficult to provide them with sufficient core formation resources. As long as they contributed enough and no one competed with them, even if they unfortunately failed once, they could still have a second chance. After all, core formation was different from foundation establishment cultivators without foundation establishment pills. As long as the breakthrough started, there would only be two outcomes. They would either live or die. For cultivators forming the core, as long as they did not really take the step of condensing a core, even if they failed, they could still condense a false core. At most, they would injure their vitality, but their lives would not be in danger, unless you had already begun to condense your core and your golden core had already formed. In that case, there was really no turning back. Of course, only Jiang Renquan and Jiang Yunru could receive special treatment. They had followed the Jiang family all the way from the rock bottom. The hard work and sweat they had put in was definitely not something those juniors of the Jiang family could compare to. Similarly, the contributions and connections they had accumulated in the family were dozens or even hundreds of times more than the other members of the Jiang family. At this moment, Jiang Chengxuan had just put away the talismans he had drawn when the quiet room he was in was touched. Needless to say, there was no one else who would trigger the restriction in his room other than his wife, Shen Ruyan. That was the case. When Jiang Chengxuan went to open the door, it was his wife, Shen Ruyan, standing outside. "Husband, did you forget something?" Jiang Chengxuan had just opened the door when Shen Ruyan asked him with a smile. This stunned Jiang Chengxuan. Soon he reacted and immediately asked, "Wife, are you talking about the matter of guarding Senior Chuan Yang?" "Yeah." Shen Ruyan nodded. "Just now, fellow Taoist Yan sent me a message. She said that Senior Chuan Yang will officially begin to break through to soul formation in a month. If there's nothing else we need to do, let's set off." He's going to break through to soul formation in a month. Jiang Chengxuan immediately calculated the time and realized that it was a few months earlier than expected. But thinking about it, it made sense. This kind of thing naturally could not be done according to plan. If it could be brought forward, naturally, those people who wanted to stop him would not be able to grasp the best opportunity. Although it could not really avoid the arrival of the human tribulation, it could reduce the difficulty of the human tribulation by a little. At the thought of this, Jiang Chengxuan immediately nodded at Shen Ruyan. "PM, almost done here. There's no time to lose. Let's go over directly." As soon as he finished speaking, the couple quickly left Qunaming Peak together. After instructing Tang Beisheng, Jiang Reni, and the others who were in charge of guarding Mount Mystic Tai, they quickly flew towards the Hidden Sword Palace. A few days later, when Jiang Chengxuan and Shen Ruyan arrived at the Hidden Sword Palace, they realized that many protective arrays had been activated. There were also some arrays to conceal the heavenly secrets. It should be to prevent those from deducting the exact time of perfected Lord Chuan Yang's breakthrough. Fellow Taoist Jiang, fellow Taoist Shen. At this moment, outside the guest hall of the Hidden Sword Palace, Yan Wushuang and Earth Walker walked in. When they saw Jiang Chengxuan and Shen Ruyan, they immediately cupped their fists gratefully. "Thank you for coming to the Hidden Sword Palace to protect Senior Brother Chuan Yang. Senior Brother Chuan Yang is currently in a critical moment of seclusion, so he can't come out to see you. On behalf of Senior Brother Chuan Yang, we will thank the two of you first. Hearing this, Jiang Chengxuan and Shen Ruyan immediately shook their heads. The two of you are too polite. Not to mention that Senior Xuan Yang has done us a favor. You two have also taken care of our Jiang family. This is nothing at all. More and more cultivators arrived. That included Jiang Chengxuan and Shen Ruyan's good friends. Perfected Lord Flowing Snow and Perfected Lord Starsea. Other than that, there were also some cultivators they did not know. They were all nascent soul perfected lords. Several days passed. 3 extremely powerful auras descended into the hidden sword palace. Jiang Chengxuan and Shen Ruyan knew 2 of them. They were perfected Lord Wind Cloud from the Purple Sun Palace and Su Qingchen from the Everlasting Palace. Jiang Chengxuan and Shen Ruyan soon found out about the identity of the other person. It was Sword Lord Azure Blue, the personal disciple of Heavenly Lord Infinite Ocean. A true sword cultivator. It had to be said that there were indeed many people who came to protect perfected Lord Xuan Yang this time round. Moreover, the people who came were at least at the mid-stage of nascent soul. As for those with the combat strength of a grand cultivator, including Jiang Chengxuan and Shen Ruyan, there were 5 or 6 people. In addition, Heavenly Lord Everlasting Mountain, Heavenly Lord Purple Flame, and Heavenly Lord Infinite Ocean would definitely be present. Of course, they would not appear in the hidden sword palace like Jiang Chengxuan and the others. Instead, they would hide in the dark and deal with opponents of the same level. Buzz. Right then, an extremely powerful primordial spirit fluctuation suddenly emitted from the seclusion place where perfected Lord Xuan Yang was. At the same time, the spiritual qi within a radius of dozens of kilometers began to become active. This shocked Jiang Chengxuan and the others. Could it be that fellow Taoist Xuan Yang was about to? Just as this thought flashed through everyone's mind, they could clearly sense that the spiritual qi in the surrounding had suddenly become dense. Moreover, in their spiritual sense observation, the spiritual qi seemed to be of different colors. Red, yellow, green, blue, white, gold, and so on. Moreover, this was not the most important thing. The most important thing was that this spiritual qi seemed to be stirred by an invisible hand and rushed towards a seclusion cave abode. Senior brother has already begun to break through to soul formation. Suddenly, Yan Wushwang and Earthwalker's expressions changed. In the next moment, the 2 of them did not hesitate and immediately activated the mountain-protecting array of their hidden sword palace with all their might. Buzz. In an instant, the entire hidden sword palace was instantly enveloped by a huge light barrier. Indistinctly, there seemed to be an endless sharp sword qi inside the huge light shield. It was filled with an extremely powerful killing intent. It could be imagined that if anyone dared to attack the mountain-protecting array of the hidden sword palace, they would definitely be instantly attacked by the sharp sword qi in the array. At that moment, Jiang Chengxuan, Shen Ruyan, perfected Lord Wind Cloud Su Qingchen, Sword Lord Azure Blue, perfected Lord Flowing Snow and the others perked up. That was because they knew that according to the current situation, perfected Lord Xuan Yang's human tribulation could arrive at any moment. What they had to do was to help perfected Lord Xuan Yang block those who tried to obstruct his path. Boom! Suddenly, an extremely ferocious flame suddenly smashed onto the mountain-protecting array of the hidden sword palace, immediately causing a series of light ripples. Yan Wushwang and Earthwalker's expressions changed. Jiang Chengxuan and the others immediately looked outside the mountain-protecting array of the hidden sword palace. Outside, there were 3 people who had formed a formation and were attacking it. It's the 3 Zai brothers. Yan Wushwang immediately recognized the comers. They were the 3 people from the nascent soul family, the Zai family. However, this nascent soul Zai family was not a cultivation family in the northern border, but a cultivation family from the eastern end. In the past, when perfected Lord Xuan Yang was traveling to the eastern end, he had a grudge with the 3 Zai brothers. He had killed 2 nascent soul elders of the Zai family. It was also at that time that there was an irreconcilable grudge between the Zai family and their hidden sword palace. However, because the eastern end and the northern border were too far apart, the 2 families did not erupt into a war that spanned the 2 regions. Unexpectedly, just as perfected Lord Xuan Yang was about to break through to soul formation, the 3 Zai brothers were the first to jump out. At this moment, the 3 brothers of the Zai family looked in the direction of the hidden sword palace. The eldest son of the Zai family suddenly said, Qu and Yang, were here today to avenge the elder of my Zai family. On account of the impending demonic tribulation, we will only attack 3 times. After 3 times, no matter what the outcome is, the grudges between our families will be written off. How about that? These words were quickly transmitted to everyone's ears through the mountain-protecting array of the hidden sword palace. When Jiang Chengxuan and the others heard this, their hearts immediately skipped a beat. It seemed like the Zai family did not want to fall out with perfected Lord Chuan Yang completely. After all, no one could guarantee that perfected Lord Chuan Yang would really be able to advance to soul formation this time. If he succeeded, and the Zai family was too ruthless, even if the 2 families were separated by 2 large regions, the Zai family would probably not be able to avoid destruction. However, if they only attacked 3 times, perfected Lord Chuan Yang would probably not pursue the matter. On the contrary, perfected Lord Chuan Yang would owe them a favor. After all, their appearance was already included in perfected Lord Chuan Yang's tribulation. If they stopped after attacking 3 times, not only would they not pose any substantial threat to perfected Lord Chuan Yang, but they would also reduce a portion of the tribulation he would have to experience. In the eyes of some people who didn't know the inside story, this was the Zai family taking advantage of the situation. It could be said that they were despicable and shameless to the extreme. However, in the eyes of Jiang Chengxuan and the others who knew the inside story and the truth, the Zai family's actions were beneficial to both sides. Before long, a calm voice sounded from the direction of perfected Lord Chuan Yang's seclusion cave abode. Sure. Level 6 Demon Sovereign's Destruction 2. Hearing this, the 3 Zai brothers outside the hidden sword palace immediately heaved a sigh of relief. At that moment, they did not hesitate. The 3 of them immediately took out an array plate. After injecting enough dharmic powers, an extremely powerful flame immediately erupted from the 3 array discs. There was a loud bang. The flames landed on the mountain-protecting array of the hidden sword palace again. It caused a ripple. In the next moment, the 3 people of the Zai family put away the array discs in their hands and started to attack for the last time. In an instant, 3 extremely dazzling saber beams slashed at the mountain-protecting array. It caused the surface of the mountain-protecting array to immediately flicker. Fortunately, the array quickly calmed down. As promised, the 3 Zai brothers did not attack again. The eldest son of the Zai family cupped his fists and bowed in the direction of the hidden sword palace. This matter ends here. The grudges between our 2 families will be written off. We won't stay any longer. Goodbye. With that, the 3 brothers of the Zai family did not stay any longer and quickly disappeared. Seeing this, the expressions of Jiang Chengxuan and the others began to turn solemn. This was because they knew that with the departure of the Zai brothers, perfected Lord Chuan Yang's tribulation had only just begun. Time passed slowly. In the blink of an eye, a month had passed. At that moment, the majestic aura in the cave abode where perfected Lord Chuan Yang was in seclusion became heavier. Indistinctly, it seemed to want to envelop this world. At this moment, illusory figures appeared in the divine senses of Jiang Chengxuan and the others. Those were Jiang Chengxuan and the others couldn't help but freeze. They instantly recognized that those illusory figures were not real lives, but a combination of some consciousness or will. That's the enemy my senior brother killed in the past. At this moment, Yan Wushwang suddenly said, "At this moment, they are just some remnant consciousness gathered under the influence of my senior brother's tribulation. They won't last long. Their only use is to trigger the inner demons in my senior brother's heart. For this round, you and I can't interfere. Everything will depend on my senior brother. A combination of remnant consciousness. In that case, this would be the dead of the past. Regardless of whether the other party was still alive or not, the tribulation would turn them into a real but illusory form and appear in front of you, or rather, in your consciousness. It would arouse your inner demons. If he could pass this round, it'd be fine. However, if he could not pass, everything would be over." Unknowingly, there was a hint of nervousness on Yan Wushwang and Earthwalker's faces. Although they were very confident in their senior brother, it was hard to say if there would be any variables in the tribulation. It was natural for them to be worried. Swoosh! At this moment, an invisible sword chi suddenly appeared in the air. The sword chi landed on the illusory figures and immediately killed them one by one. Waves of angry and resentful wails suddenly sounded in the air, accompanied by all kinds of hatred, anger, unwillingness, and other negative emotions. Jiang Chengshuan and the others, who were in the mountain protecting array, felt inexplicably frustrated. This was because they were slightly affected by this tribulation. This also surprised Jiang Chengshuan and the others. They were separated by so many defenses and barriers, and those were not specifically targeted at them. However, they were still affected. One could imagine how terrifying what perfected Lord Chuan Yang was facing was. Arg! At this moment, some disciples of the Hidden Sword Palace looked pained. Seeing this, Yan Wushwang and Earthwalker's faces turned serious. They knew what was going on. Without a word, they immediately raised their hands and cast a few spells. In an instant, beams of green light immediately fell from the array. When the green light landed on the Hidden Sword Palace disciples, their painful expressions immediately returned to normal. Kai kai kai. At the same time, the sword chi outside the array became more and more domineering and sharp. In just a moment, most of the illusory figures that appeared in everyone's divine consciousness disappeared. From the looks of it, it would not be long before they were all destroyed by the sword chi. Boom! However, at this moment, an incomparably huge dragon claw that emitted a supreme might suddenly slap down in the direction of the Hidden Sword Palace. Bang 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 bang. The terrifying might directly caused the surrounding air to be oppressive. One could clearly see that in the center of the collision, huge air currents were constantly twisting. The entire Hidden Sword Palace seemed to be unable to withstand this terrifying might. Not only did the light of the entire mountain protecting array begin to dim, but even the entire Hidden Sword Palace began to shake slightly. It's the Black Flood Dragon Demon Sovereign. Jiang Chengshuan, Shen Ruyan, perfected Lord Flowing Snow, Yan Wushwang, perfected Lord Wind Cloud, and the others recognized the dragon claw and the terrifying aura it emitted. Unexpectedly at this moment, a level 6 demon sovereign actually showed up. At that moment, be it Jiang Chengshuan, Yan Wushwang, or perfected Lord Wind Cloud, their expressions turned abnormally solemn. Facing a level 6 demon sovereign, they knew very well that it was impossible for them to withstand it alone. Even if there was the mountain protecting array, it was not very useful. If they wanted to stop a level 6 demon sovereign, they had to have a big shot of the same level. Sigh, Black Flood Dragon, aren't you being too anxious? At this moment, a sigh suddenly resounded in the sky above the Hidden Sword Palace. Immediately after, a palm that was like white jade suddenly stretched out from the void. In an instant, it collided with a huge dragon claw. Rumble! In an instant, endless energy wreaked havoc. In particular, a pitch-black spatial rift appeared at the center of the contact. One could imagine how terrifying the power erupting from the two of them was. Everlasting Mountain, it's you again. A cold and low roar suddenly sounded in the sky. Why, are you here to fight me again because you haven't had enough last time? Accompanied by a chuckle, a grand figure that seemed to have split the world apart suddenly rushed into the sky. At this moment, the world seemed to be swallowed by endless light. At this moment, no one dared to look up at the sky. They could only judge that the battle between the two sides was still in an extremely intense state through the huge explosions in the sky. Destroy them! Suddenly, a majestic roar resounded in the sky. Immediately after, huge figures appeared out of the void. They were all level 5 demon emperors with abnormally valiant auras. Huh? Seeing this, the eyes of Jiang Chengshuan and the others in the Hidden Sword Palace suddenly focused. In the next moment, perfected Lord Flowing Snow, perfected Lord Star Sea, and some other mid-stage nascent soul perfected lords began to jointly support the mountain protecting array of the Hidden Sword Palace under the lead of Yan Wushwang and Earthwalker. Buzz buzz buzz. With the addition of so many perfected lords, the power of the entire Hidden Sword Palace's mountain protecting array immediately increased by more than 10 times. Rays of light flickered. There was a loud bang. The level 5 demon emperors that appeared began to ruthlessly attack the mountain protecting array. Bang 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 bang. In an instant, countless flames exploded on the mountain protecting array. The mountain protecting array kept flowing with light, trying to block all the attacks. Roar! Squeak! At the same time, among the demon emperors, 3 extremely powerful figures suddenly appeared above. It was a fire phoenix, a white tiger, and a black flood dragon. They were the three famous peak demon emperors of the demon beast race. Phoenix, bright warrior, white/deity, and heaven's dark nemesis. Like perfected Lord Wind Cloud, Xianxia, and Sword Lord Azure Blue, they had all reached the peak of nascent soul. Furthermore, in some aspects, they were even stronger than perfected Lord Wind Cloud and the other two. At that moment, perfected Lord Wind Cloud, Xianxia, and Azure Blue knew that they had to make a move as well. Otherwise, when they joined forces with the other demon emperors, the mountain protecting array might not be able to withstand it. At the thought of this, perfected Lord Wind Cloud, Xianxia, and Sword Lord Azure Blue no longer hesitated. After telling Yan Wushwang and the others, they left the mountain protecting array and faced the three peak demon emperors. Boom! Shriek! It was a collision that was even more powerful than the combined forces of the demon beasts. The commotion caused by the battle between the six who had reached the peak of nascent soul was almost second only to the battle between the two soul formation big shots. In just an instant, countless mountains collapsed. The forest turned to dust. The river was cut in half. Coupled with the collision between the other demon emperors and Yan Wushwang and the others, the area within a radius of a few hundred miles had turned into a no-man's land. As long as any living being below level 5 entered, they would be completely turned to dust by the aftershock of the impact. Boom! It was at this moment, an extremely cunning and overwhelmingly domineering sword light, also filled with endless evil, fiercely struck down upon the protective array. Squeak, squeak. Extremely ear-piercing sound sounded. This is... Everyone's expressions changed. They instantly recognized that the owner of the sword was a cultivator who cultivated a demonic cultivation technique. Who is it? The eyes of Yan Wushwang and the others instantly turned abnormally cold. Their gazes quickly searched the surroundings, soon focusing on a middle-aged man in linen clothes. It's you, Heavenly Sword Demon Lord. At that moment, even perfected Lord Wind Cloud and the other two who were fighting with all their might against the three peak demon emperors frowned. It was actually this person. This was going to be troublesome. They knew very well that this Heavenly Sword Demon Lord was also a cultivator at the peak of nascent soul like them. However, the only thing they did not expect was that he actually had the guts to appear here. Wasn't he afraid that the soul formation Heavenly Lord on their side would slap him to death? Clang! Just as everyone thought this, they saw a pitch-black demon sword suddenly appear in Heavenly Sword Demon Lord's hand. In just an instant, countless demonic chi gathered on the demonic sword. An extremely evil, violent, and cold aura burst out of the sword. Jiang Chengxuan and Shen Ruyan, who were inside the mountain protecting array, couldn't help but narrow their eyes. Jiang Chengxuan said, "Fellow Taoist Yan, fellow Taoist Earthwalker, let us deal with those two." With that, Jiang Chengxuan and Shen Ruyan arrived outside the mountain protecting array without any hesitation. This also puzzled many cultivators present. Did Jiang Chengxuan just say two? Were there two people? Did he say it wrong or did they hear it wrong? Just as this thought flashed through everyone's minds, they heard a loud bang outside the mountain protecting array. Squeak, squeak. Accompanied by a series of dense black saber chi, everyone realized that there was actually a peak nascent soul demonic cultivator hidden on the other side of Heavenly Sword Demon Lord. That person, he's the Heavenly Saber Demon Lord. Someone recognized that person. Immediately, many people present could not help but gasp. If two demonic cultivators at the peak of nascent soul suddenly attacked the mountain protecting array, it would definitely cause a considerable burden to their array. Boom! At the same time, Jiang Chengxuan and Shen Ruyan, who came out of the mountain protecting array, faced the Heavenly Sword Demon Lord and the Heavenly Saber Demon Lord. Clang! The moment Jiang Chengxuan came up, he took out his golden void sword. In an instant, a black and a gold sword light intertwined in the air and fought. In the blink of an eye, the two swords were sent flying. All the cultivators in the hidden sword palace were shocked. They did not expect that Jiang Chengxuan, who was only at the mid-stage nascent soul, could actually be on par with Heavenly Sword Demon Lord. This combat power was really... Before they could think further, Jiang Chengxuan's body suddenly grew taller. Roar! There seemed to be the roar of a dragon, an elephant in the air. Immediately after, an extremely powerful aura burst forth from Jiang Chengxuan's body. Betraying the human race, too. The terrifying power directly squeezed the surrounding air until it deformed and exploded, emitting a muffled bang. Demon suppressing fist technique. Without any hesitation, the dharmic power in Jiang Chengxuan's body was all channeled to his right fist. In an instant, an extremely dazzling fist aura shot out from Jiang Chengxuan's right hand. At the same time, behind him, green, red, yellow, white, and blue lights instantly flashed past the heavenly sword demon lord. Before the heavenly sword demon lord could react, he felt an indescribable weakness in his primordial spirit, body, and dharmic power. This immediately changed his expression. There was no time to think. He immediately gathered all his dharmic power and injected it into the demon sword in his hand. Buzz, buzz, buzz. The demon sword immediately emitted an extremely deep black light. It actually dyed the area within a radius of dozens of kilometers black. Shriek. At this moment, a dark and deep sword beam instantly cut through the air. Just as it was about to collide with the fist aura that was attacking him, Jiang Chengxuan suddenly raised his hand. In the next moment, a huge mountain that flickered with dual polarity divine light suddenly flew out of Jiang Chengxuan's body. There was a loud bang. The flying sword slashed out by the heavenly sword demon lord was instantly suppressed at the bottom of the mountain after being illuminated by the light. What? This scene immediately made the heavenly sword demon lord's expression change drastically. He did not expect Jiang Chengxuan to have such a move. This dual polarity divine light was the nemesis of all metal element dharma treasures in the world. His demon sword was naturally within this range. Damn it! The heavenly sword demon lord cursed in his heart. In the next moment, his hands quickly formed seals. Behind him, countless black sword chi suddenly condensed. They were densely packed. In the blink of an eye, there were hundreds and thousands of them. In the end, he suddenly fused these black sword chi. Many sword chi suddenly condensed into one. In an instant, a pitch-black sword chi that was 700 feet long slashed at Jiang Chengxuan's fist aura. Boom! There was a sudden explosion in the air. Fist aura and sword chi intertwined. Soon, the 700-foot-long black sword chi began to retreat in defeat. This made the heavenly sword demon lord's expression change again. He didn't expect Jiang Chengxuan to have actually mastered a fist technique that was specially targeted at demonic cultivators. Most importantly, the attacks of his Dao companion, Shen Ruyan, were also very effective against demonic cultivators. If the two of them really went all out and used all their trump cards, they might really be able to defeat the couple. The reason why they came this time round was to stop perfected Lord Chuan Yang from breaking through to soul formation. However, looking at the current situation, it would probably be very difficult for the two of them to achieve anything. Thinking of this, the heavenly sword demon lord immediately had the intention to retreat. After all, they had taken a huge risk this time. Once perfected Lord Windcloud and the others were free from the entanglement of the demon emperors, it would be almost impossible for them to leave. At that moment, the heavenly sword demon lord's dharmic power surged within him, and he unleashed another immense black sword QJ towards Jiang Chengxuan. As for him, he quickly retreated and flew into the sky in the blink of an eye. On the other side, the heavenly saber demon lord, who was fighting Shen Ruyan, did not intend to stay any longer. After slashing out a huge astral blade, he quickly fled into the distance with the heavenly sword demon lord. Seeing this, Jiang Chengxuan and Shen Ruyan did not chase after them. After all, their goal here was to guard Chuan Yang, not to kill. As demonic cultivators at the peak of nascent soul, the heavenly sword demon lord and the heavenly saber demon lord were clearly not easy to kill. Even if the couple had special methods to deal with demonic cultivators, it was no exception. Boom! After blocking the attacks of the heavenly sword demon lord and the heavenly sword demon lord, Jiang Chengxuan and Shen Ruyan immediately looked at the 6 people fighting in the air. Right now, with the addition of the 2 of them, if they could take the opportunity to take down 1 or 2 demon emperors, it would be extremely beneficial to perfected Lord Chuan Yang and the human race. The 3 peak demon emperors, Phoenix Bright Warrior and White Slash Deity, who were fighting perfected Lord Wind Cloud and Su Qingqian, clearly sensed the situation on Jiang Chengxuan and Shen Ruyan's side. This made the hearts of the 3 demon emperors tremble. As a black flood dragon, Heaven's dark nemesis said angrily, "How long do you want to wait? Could it be that you really plan to let Qu and Yang successfully advance to soul formation? As soon as it finished speaking, three figures with auras that were not inferior to perfected Lord Wind Cloud and the others suddenly appeared in the void. This is. Everyone was shocked. This was because they recognized that the three figures that appeared in front of them were actually human cultivators. Furthermore, each of them had reached the 9th level of nascent soul. Feng Wuji, Taoist Kun Jian, Feng Xingchen, it's you three. Su Qingchen, who was fighting the three demons, immediately recognized the three of them. This immediately caused her beautiful eyes to be filled with anger. Perfected Lord Wind Cloud and Sword Lord Azure Blue's expressions were dark as well. They really did not expect that there would be peak nascent soul cultivators of the human race among the people coming to stop perfected Lord Qu and Yang. Moreover, from the looks of it, they had clearly joined forces with the demons. This was really difficult to accept. Sword Lord Azure Blue suddenly said, "Fellow Taoists, if I'm not wrong, there doesn't seem to be any hatred between you and fellow Taoist Qu and Yang in the past, right? Why are you doing this?" However, Feng Wuji, Taoist Kun Jian, and Feng Xingchen did not answer Sword Lord Azure Blue's question. Their gazes turned to the three demon emperors. Feng Wuji said, "Phoenix Bright Warrior, White/Deity, Heaven's Dark Nemesis will help you this time. Don't forget what you promised us back then." Helaza. Of course. Phoenix Bright Warrior suddenly laughed heartily. "As long as you can help us stop Qu and Yang from breaking through to soul formation, we demons will give you all the spiritual items you want. Moreover, as long as you truly and sincerely submit to us, my demon race will certainly not treat your human race, led by you, unfairly in the future." What? When they suddenly heard Phoenix Bright Warrior's words, Su Qingchen, perfected Lord Wind Cloud, Sword Lord Azure Blue, Jiang Chengxuan, Shen Ruyan, and the others were shocked. Perfected Lord Wind Cloud's expression turned cold as he said coldly, "Feng Wuji, how dare you join the demon race and betray the human race?" They really did not expect that as the strongest few in the human race below soul formation, they would actually choose to join the demon race at such a critical moment. This was a huge blow to the morale of the entire human race. What were they after? Soul formation resource or soul formation cultivation technique. As long as they contributed enough, the soul formation heavenly lords of the human race would not be stingy with giving them these. There was no need for Feng Wuji and the others to go so far as to join the demons. Even if they could really obtain the resources needed to break through to soul formation from the demons, so what? Did they think that they could survive their soul formation tribulation after betraying the human race? However, Feng Wuji and the other two were not affected by perfected Lord Wind Cloud's words at all. Taoist Kun Jian, who had an iron sword on his back, suddenly said indifferently, "We didn't betray the human race. We just chose a path that we thought was right." "You didn't betray the human race." Perfected Lord Wind Cloud's expression could not help but turn colder. "Then I really want to hear what the correct path you're referring to is." Taoist Kun Jian and Feng Wuji looked at each other. Finally, Feng Xingchen said, "You should know the situation of our human race better than us. Do you think that, with the current situation of our human race, there will really be hope in the future?" "What do you mean?" Affected Lord Wind Cloud, Su Qingchen, and Sword Lord Azure Blue. Everyone, including Jiang Chengxuan and Shen Ruyan, changed their expressions. They never expected to hear such words from Feng Xingchen, a 9th-level nascent soul cultivator. What did he mean by the human race having no hope in the future? The most terrifying thing was that even cultivators at the 9th level of nascent soul like Feng Xingchen, Feng Wuji, and Taoist Kun Jian had such thoughts. What about the others? Did they have the same thoughts? Or even worse? At this moment, everyone couldn't help but feel a shadow cast over their hearts. If many people had such thoughts, it would definitely be fatal to the morale of the human race. In fact, it was extremely possible for the human race to split because of this. Wait. Split? Suddenly, Su Qingchen, perfected Lord Wind Cloud, Sword Lord Azure Blue, Jiang Chengxuan, and Shen Ruyan seemed to have thought of something and their pupils constricted. Su Qingchen looked at Feng Wuji and the other two, and said in an abnormally cold tone, "So, you decided to join the demons? Because you want us humans to submit to the demons and be enslaved by them. For this, you even attack a fellow Taoist of the human race who has a chance of reaching soul formation. Is this what you mean by the correct path?" Facing Su Qingshan's question, Feng Wuji, Taoist Kun Jian, and Feng Xingqian did not refute. On the contrary, their expressions were surprisingly calm. This made Jiang Chengxuan, Su Qingshan, and the others' hearts sink. They knew that the faith of Feng Wuji and the other two was already incomparably firm. They wouldn't be convinced by just a few words. At this moment, in their hearts, nothing was more important than continuing the flame of the human race, even if it meant they had to be enslaved. This was already a serious difference in philosophy. Even if Heavenly Lord Everlasting Mountain and the others came, they would not be able to convince them, unless they could see the strength of the human race when combined. But was that possible now? Jiang Chengxuan couldn't help but curse in his heart. He did not agree with Feng Wuji and the others' philosophy. Looking at the history of his previous life and the development of the human race in this world, as long as one submitted, he would suffer. How could a race without a soul, without the courage, and without the fearless will to die speak of hope? How could they rise? It was impossible. No matter who it was, no matter what race it was, as long as they lost their hope, even if they still existed, living was no different from death. On the contrary, if they were brave and fought to the end. This kind of belief and spirit meant that, even in difficult situations and being weaker, enemies would still be cautious and not dare to press too hard. Even if the forefathers fell one by one, the will they passed down would never perish. There is hope for the descendants. In the future, there might be a chance to break the barriers and pierce through the darkness. So, in Jiang Chengxuan's opinion, there was actually nothing more to say between them. Indeed, that was because in the next moment, Feng Wuji, Taoist Kun Jian, and Feng Xingqian had already attacked Jiang Chengxuan and Shen Ruyan, who were blocking their way. Boom! At this moment, 3 extremely powerful auras suddenly burst out from Feng Wuji and the other 2. A green flying sword, an iron sword, and a spear appeared in the sky and attacked Jiang Chengxuan and Shen Ruyan. Seeing this scene, the couple's eyes could not help but constrict. In the next moment, they no longer held back. Jiang Chengxuan's figure instantly grew to 500 feet, and with his true treasure, the deep earth halberd, he unleashed an extremely heavy aura and fiercely smashed it towards the void in front. At the same time, he took out the true treasure, dual polarity divine mountain. An extremely dazzling light flashed past. A faint green light suddenly rose on the 3 true treasures attacking him and Shen Ruyan, directly blocking the illumination of the divine light. Seeing this, Jiang Chengxuan was not surprised, since they already knew that he had a true treasure like the dual polarity. Divine Mountain, if Feng Wuji and the other 2 could still be restrained by his method, they would not be who they are. Jiang Chengxuan immediately reached out and grabbed at the air. There was a clang. A long saber that was emitting a blazing green light was pulled out from the void and slashed at the 3 of them. Boom! At the same time, streaks of red, silver, and blue lightning were shot out from Shen Ruyan's hands. It was her lightning divine powers. Apart from that, Shen Ruyan also condensed a spear that flickered with endless lightning in her palm. 7 stars suddenly lit up in the sky. It seemed to be echoing with the spear in her hand, causing the aura on it to become stronger. Squeak, squeak. A blinding light shone. The lightning spear in her hand collided with the attacks of Feng Wuji and the other 2. Extremely dazzling light immediately rose in the sky. Rumble. Kai, 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 kai. Bang, 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 bang. In that instant, flying swords, spears, thunders, saber light, and halberd light exploded simultaneously in the sky, creating giant circular ripples that rapidly expanded and dispersed. In an instant, everything within several miles turned into the tiniest dust particles, including trees, rocks, and even the ground. Jiang Chengxuan and Shen Ruyan were pushed back tens of meters in midair, their expressions solemn. It was undeniable that Feng Wuji and his companions, as veteran nascent soul cultivators, had a foundation that ordinary late-stage nascent soul cultivators couldn't compare to. In addition, they were not demonic cultivators, so the couple's attacks did not have an enhanced effect on them. Thus, as soon as they started fighting, the couple fell into a comparatively disadvantageous position. Of course, with the couple's current strength, it was impossible for Feng Wuji and the other 2 to take them down in a short period of time. The best scenario was that the 2 sides would be in a temporary stalemate. And that was the truth. In the following time, both sides tested each other with their methods. Although Jiang Chengxuan and Shen Ruyan were at a disadvantage, they stood firmly. Not to mention that Feng Wuji and the other two could not approach at all. Even the aftershock of the battle between the two sides was extremely difficult to approach the mountain-protecting array of the hidden sword palace. This can't go on. Taoist Kun Jian, who was carrying an iron sword on his back, suddenly spoke in a deep voice. Feng Wuji and Feng Xingqian nodded in agreement. At that moment, the three of them looked at each other and saw a hint of determination in each other's eyes. The three of them no longer hesitated. Feng Wuji quickly formed hand seals. In front of him, a green light suddenly appeared. Soon, the green streams of light transformed into swords. In the end, those green swords suddenly merged into a huge sword aura that was 8,000 feet long. With an extremely terrifying roar, it slashed at Jiang Chengxuan and Shen Ruyan's heads. At the same time, Taoist Kun Jian and Feng Xingqian didn't hold back either. The two of them also used their strongest divine powers. The iron sword on Taoist Kun Jian's back instantly transformed into countless sword shadows. In the sky, it seemed as if a phantom shadow swept across, splitting the heavens with a fierce slash. An iron sword wrapped in endless killing intent suddenly crossed the distance between the two sides and arrived in front of Jiang Chengxuan in the blink of an eye. Feng Xingqian continuously swung the long spear in his hands. Extremely dazzling starlight kept lighting up on the entire spear. In the blink of an eye, his spear suddenly became as hazy as starlight, and then as heavy as a star. Suddenly, it arrived in front of Jiang Chengxuan and Shen Ruyan. At that moment, Jiang Chengxuan and Shen Ruyan felt that three terrifying killing intents had locked onto them. This made their eyes constrict. They knew that Feng Wuji and the other two had clearly used their ultimate methods. If they used the same method to fight the enemy as before, they might not be able to withstand the attack. Even if they blocked it, they would probably have to pay a considerable price. Most importantly, they could not guarantee that there would not be anyone else hiding in the dark beside Feng Wuji and the other two. If that really happened, it would definitely be extremely dangerous for them. So, unconsciously, the couple looked at each other. In the next moment, two balls of blazing flames suddenly rose from Jiang Chengxuan's hands. Then the two flames suddenly fused and turned into a green-white fireball the size of a ping-pong ball. It was thrown at Feng Wuji and the other two. At the same time, Shen Ruyan quickly made hand seals. The true lightning divine seal between her eyebrows suddenly shone brightly. Then 5 different colored lightning suddenly shot out from her hand. There was a loud bang. In the blink of an eye, the couple's divine power collided with the attacks of Feng Wuji and the other two. Rumble! An incomparably huge shock wave rose. Jiang Chengxuan and Shen Ruyan immediately realized that it would be difficult for them to withstand the combined attack of the three of them. However, at this moment, a cold killing intent that made one's hair stand on end suddenly appeared beside Jiang Chengxuan and Shen Ruyan. Yan Wushuang and the others, who were in the mountain-protecting array, could not help but exclaim, "Be careful!" Swoosh! Suddenly, a black sword light that looked like a venomous snake's tongue appeared at the back of Jiang Chengxuan and Shen Ruyan's necks. There was no doubt that Jiang Chengxuan and Shen Ruyan would die if they were hit. Even if they were lucky enough to survive, they would definitely be seriously injured and on the verge of death. However, at this moment, Jiang Chengxuan seemed to have expected this scene. His already huge figure suddenly rose again. It went from 500 feet to 550 feet. He had no intention of dodging the black sword beam that was aimed at him and Shen Ruyan. A 5-colored aureola suddenly appeared in front of him. At the same time, his body lit up with a dazzling light. Clearly, he had already circulated the body tempering technique, infinite wheel, to the extreme. Accompanied by a puff, the aureola, which was better than any defensive true treasure in terms of defense, suddenly dimmed. Immediately after, clear cracks appeared on the surface. One could imagine how terrifying the other party's attack was. With a bang, the aureola that Jiang Chengxuan regarded as the strongest defense of his suddenly exploded into light spots that filled the sky and dissipated. At the same time, the remaining power of the black sword beam stabbed into Jiang Chengxuan's right shoulder. Creak! There was an ear-piercing sound like the friction of glass. A series of sparks suddenly appeared on the surface of Jiang Chengxuan's right shoulder. At this moment, an extremely cold killing intent suddenly appeared in Jiang Chengxuan's eyes. "Stupid rat, I've finally caught you." Shriek! Jiang Chengxuan suddenly stretched out his right hand. Kai 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 kai. At this moment, the protective light on his right shoulder was finally broken. The last wisp of black sword light finally pierced into Jiang Chengshuan's body. Jiang Chengshuan suddenly grabbed someone. That person was dressed in black. There was only endless loneliness and death in his gray eyes. Seeing that his whereabouts had been exposed and that he had been captured by the other party. Knowing that he had no way out, he wanted to burn everything and give Jiang Chengshuan the final blow. However, how could Jiang Chengshuan give him such an opportunity? The dragon elephant phantom behind him suddenly flashed past. The dharmic power in Jiang Chengshuan's body, blood qi and strength instantly erupted. He grabbed that person and suddenly closed his fingers. It was as if a bubble had been pinched. The figure grabbed by Jiang Chengshuan shattered instantly. At that moment, Jiang Chengshuan's enormous figure also burst like a bubble. When he reappeared, he was already 1,000 meters away. Boom! Above and below in all directions the figure of a large halberd appeared. With an irresistible force, it fiercely struck a certain point in the void. Crack! Like a shattered mirror, cracks suddenly appeared in that part of the void. Then a figure in black robes stumbled out, his body as grotesquely cracked as the shattered mirror. "You almost managed to escape from me," Jiang Chengshuan said, his face showing murderous intent. "This time, let's see where you can hide." Boom! As he spoke, Jiang Chengshuan's deep earth halberd fell again. The powerful force burst the air around it, creating an absolute vacuum. The figure in black robes flickered slightly. But at that moment, a golden sword tip suddenly pierced through his forehead. This left his lonely and death-filled eyes in shock. The next moment, his head and entire body were split apart by the extremely sharp sword qi, including his nascent soul. Boom! At the same time, on the other side, a purple talisman appeared in Shen Ruyan's hand. As she activated the purple talisman, a column of purple flame that seemed to burn everything in the world rose up. The attacks of Feng Wuji and the other two had just arrived when they were enveloped by the purple flame and could not advance further at all. It's the Purple Sun Heavenly Fire Talisman. The expressions of Feng Wuji and the other two immediately changed. They had clearly recognized the origin of the talisman in Shen Ruyan's hand. It was also because of this that their expressions instantly turned extremely ugly. No one knew better than them how extraordinary the Purple Sun Heavenly Fire Talisman from Heavenly Lord Purple Flame was. Although it was only high-grade level 5. However, many 9th-level nascent soul cultivators did not dare to face it head-on. The reason was that the power of the Purple Sun Heavenly Fire Talisman was already infinitely close to level 6. Damn it, why does Shen Ruyan have the Purple Sun Heavenly Fire Talisman? Feng Xinchen's expression was gloomy. Feng Wuji said, "It should have been given to her by Heavenly Lord Purple Flame. Otherwise, I really can't think of anyone in this world who can obtain the Purple Sun Heavenly Fire Talisman through normal means. Let's go. With that talisman around, there's no point in us staying here. We've already done our best." Taoist Kun Jian looked up at the sky and said to Feng Wuji and Feng Xingchen with a heavy tone. The two of them looked at each other. They knew that unless one of them was willing to give up his life, it was impossible for them to break through Jiang Chengshuan and Shen Ruyan's defense. Thinking of this, the three of them were about to leave when they were shocked to discover that their bodies were actually unable to move. Even the space they were in became like an impenetrable wall. It was extremely difficult to even move, let alone fly. How come? Just as this thought flashed through their minds, they heard a faint voice suddenly come from the direction of the Hidden Sword Palace. "Fellow Taoists, since you've come to my Hidden Sword Palace, stay here today." Perfected Lord Chuan Yang. Upon hearing this voice, the expressions of Feng Wuji, Taoist Kun Jian, and Feng Xingchen changed drastically. He has already succeeded in breaking through. How is this possible? As if he could read their minds, Perfected Lord Chuan Yang's voice sounded again. "Originally, I wanted to conserve my strength to deal with the demon beasts or demonic cultivators, but since you want to join in the fun, you can't blame me." As soon as he finished speaking, a brilliant sword light that was like a sun suddenly soared high from the direction of the Hidden Sword Palace. That terrifying might made all the surrounding voices fall silent. Oh no! The expressions of Feng Wuji and the other two changed drastically. Facing that sword, they could already feel death approaching. They had no doubt that the sword had the ability to kill the three of them at the same time. Split up. Feng Wuji immediately roared. At this moment, the three of them could no longer care about anything else. The dharmic power in their bodies surged rapidly. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. In an instant, Feng Wuji and the other two immediately fled in three different directions. It's useless. Perfected Lord Chuan, Yang's indifferent voice, sounded from the hidden sword palace again. Soon, everyone saw the brilliant sword light that was dazzling like a sun, suddenly flashing in the air. In the next moment, Feng Xingqian, who was flying forward, suddenly froze. Then, under everyone's disbelieving gazes, Feng Xingqian's body collapsed and dissipated like quicksand. Even his nascent soul disappeared without a trace. 3 with one sword confronts the demon sovereign. 2. Whoosh. Suddenly, at the place where Feng Xingqian's body disappeared, a sword light flashed again. Immediately after, Taoist Kun Jian, who had turned into an iron sword, suddenly broke into two in midair. Clang! The broken sword fell and transformed into Taoist Kun Jian's body. However, his body began to collapse like Feng Xingqian. In the blink of an eye, it disappeared without a trace. Whoosh! A gust of wind swept through the air. Feng Wuji had already burned all of his nascent soul essence. But to his despair, he realized that no matter how hard he fought, his figure never budged from its original spot, including Feng Xingqian and Taoist Kun Jian, who had already been killed by Perfected Lord Chuan Yang. Although they seemed to have turned into streams of light and flown far away, however, from the beginning to the end, they were still walking in circles. This was one of the most terrifying aspects of a soul formation heavenly lord. They had already grasped the spatial law. Against nascent soul cultivators unaware of these rules, it was an absolute domination. Their attacks never missed, and this was why Chuan Yang could kill Feng Xingqian and the others so easily and prevent them from escaping. I can't accept this. Feng Wuji roared. At that moment, all his blood, dharmic power, and nascent soul essence exploded like a cannonball. His erupting power formed a column of energy, shooting up into the sky. Snap! However, what met him was a dazzling sword, light as big as a door. As the sword beam shot past, the surging chi pillar was instantly dispersed. Feng Wuji trembled violently on the spot. The next moment, the light in his eyes extinguished, and his body crumbled away like weathered stone. His entire body disintegrated inch by inch like a weathered rock. It was only at this moment that everyone present suddenly reacted. They could not help but look at the place where perfected Lord Chuan Yang was in seclusion. Senior brother Chuan Yang, you succeeded. Yan Wushwang's surprised voice rang out. Answering her was perfected Lord Chuan Yang's light laughter. Thank you, junior sister Yan and everyone for guarding me. I Chuan Yang will remember this favor. As he spoke, perfected Lord Chuan Yang's figure appeared in front of everyone. However, the current him was no longer in the appearance of a child. Instead, he had transformed into a young man. Even the aura on his body became abnormally vast, like an abyss and sea, making people not dare to look at him directly. Congratulations, Heavenly Lord Chuan Yang, for reaching soul formation. From now on, there is hope for the immortal Tao. The future is promising. Immediately, someone congratulated perfected Lord Chuan Yang. No, Heavenly Lord Chuan Yang. Yan Wushwang, Earthwalker, perfected Lord Flowing Snow, perfected Lord Star Sea, and even Jiang Chengshuan and Shen Ruyan also reacted. They cupped their fists and bowed to Heavenly Lord Chuan Yang. Congratulations to Heavenly Lord Chuan Yang for reaching soul formation. From now on, the immortal Tao will be within your reach. The future is promising. Heavenly Lord Chuan Yang returned the greeting with a smile. Everyone, you're too polite. I'll still say the same thing. I Chuan Yang will definitely not forget your kindness today. With that said, his gaze seemed to penetrate layers of space and landed on Phoenix Bright Warrior and the other two demons who were fighting perfected Lord Wind Cloud. This immediately froze the bodies of the three demons. No matter how powerful the three of them were at the nascent soul realm, they were still nothing in front of Heavenly Lord Chuan Yang. In almost an instant, the three demons had the intention to flee. They roared in unison. Terrifying flames, violent winds and furious waves surged towards perfected Lord Wind Cloud and the other two. As for themselves, they fled into the distance. HRMPHL. You've come all this way. It would be too easy to let you leave like this. With a cold snort, countless dazzling sword lights suddenly appeared in Heavenly Lord Chuan Yang's eyes. These sword lights turned into raindrops, bullets, and fine needles, casting a vast net towards the fleeing demons. Sensing the intense killing intent behind them, the three demons could no longer maintain any composure. Phoenix Bright Warrior shouted sharply, "Ancestors, save me!" Boom! As Phoenix Bright Warrior finished speaking, a tsunami-like sea of flames surged into the sky nearby. The terrifying heat even blackened the surrounding void with streaks of darkness. An aged voice then timely resonated. "Xianxia, since you've already successfully broken through to soul formation, why stoop to bullying the weaker?" Bullying the weak. Hearing this voice, Xianxia, already stepping out of the hidden sword palace, showed a flash of cold light in his eyes. He gazed at the terrifying sea of fire and said coldly, "One was wondering who it was. So it's you, Crimson Phoenix Demon Lord. Your face seems to be getting more shameless. You not know what they did to me. Although they are juniors, they have caused obstruction in my path. You don't think this matter can be settled with just a few words, do you?" As soon as he finished speaking, sharp sword chi suddenly condensed in front of perfected Lord Xianxia. This time, the sword energy didn't disperse, but formed a 1,000-feet-long terrifying sword chi mountain, rotating and howling as it crushed towards the three demons. Black, if you want to protect them, then do so. I want to see what you're capable of now. You're courting death. Seeing Heavenly Lord Xianxia's sword chi mountain, Crimson Phoenix Demon Lord, who was in the sea of flames, was obviously furious. It let out a long cry. In the next moment, the tsunami-like sea of fire instantly increased by 30%. It roared and collided with Heavenly Lord Xianxia's sword chi mountain. Rumble. It was like billions of tons of nuclear bombs exploding. The sky suddenly cracked with a distinct sound. The previously intact sky now had a vast, visible black fissure. Chaotic spatial storms raged, chilling the hearts of all who witnessed this scene. They had no doubt that even a slight touch of these spatial storms would slice them into the tiniest dust particle without a trace. The most frightened among them were naturally the three demons. They were closest to the shattered space, and any slight mistake could lead to an irreversible doom. At this moment, they no longer had any reservations and began burning their demon essence, hoping to avoid the center of the collision between the two mighty beings. Roar! Roars echoed in the sky as the three demons each surged with their demon essence. The phantoms of a phoenix, a tiger, and a dragon flashed behind them. It was also at this moment that the speed and strength of the three demons suddenly doubled. There was a loud bang that sounded like a fighter jet diving at a low altitude. The three demons instantly disappeared on the spot. When they appeared again, they were already 1,000 miles away. With another flash, they flew further. It was only at this moment that the feeling of suffocation and imminent death eased a little. However, the price they paid was not small. Not only did they lose a significant amount of their demon essence, delaying their advancement to level 6, but in that instant, they were still hit by some of Xianxia's sword chi. Their powerful bodies were barely holding up, necessitating immediate return to their respective dens for recuperation. This healing process could easily take at least 300 years or more. Damn it! The Crimson Phoenix Demon Lord's anger intensified upon witnessing the scene. However, as it prepared to act, the void suddenly fluctuated with waves accompanied by scorching heat. The Demon Lord's eyes narrowed with apprehension. It looked at the void with a fearful expression. Without staying any longer, it grabbed the three demons and instantly disappeared. At the same time, in the endless astral winds, the Flood Dragon Demon Lord, who was battling Heavenly Lord Everlasting Mountain, also sensed the situation below. It didn't linger either. With a powerful flick of its huge dragon body, temporarily pushing back Heavenly Lord Everlasting Mountain, it swiftly disappeared into the clouds. Seeing this, Heavenly Lord Everlasting Mountain didn't chase after it. Instead, he quickly descended to the ground and came to Heavenly Lord Xianxia's side. Buzz! At the same time, the void in front of the two of them rippled. A figure in a purple robe appeared in front of them, none other than Heavenly Lord Purple Flame from the Purple Sun Palace. The two of them congratulated Heavenly Lord Xianxia. Heavenly Lord Xianxia also maintained proper etiquette. Apart from being humble, he also expressed his gratitude to the two of them. Indeed, if not for the two Heavenly Lords guarding here, one in the dark and one in the open, it was almost impossible for Heavenly Lord Xianxia to break through to soul formation. After the three of them finished chatting, Everyone immediately entered the hidden sword palace under the personal invitation of Heavenly Lord Chuan Yang. However, Heavenly Lord Chuan Yang didn't show up again. Come to think of it, it made sense. Now that Heavenly Lord Chuan Yang had just advanced to soul formation, it was the critical moment to consolidate his cultivation. Naturally, he did not have much time to spend on socializing. On the other hand, Yan Wushwang and Earthwalker took on this responsibility. They entertained the cultivators who came to the Hidden Sword Palace to help. When it was almost time for the cultivators to leave, Earthwalker suddenly found Jiang Chengxuan and Shen Ruyan and handed them a jade slip. "Oh, fellow Taoist Earthwalker, what are you doing?" Seeing Earthwalker's actions, Jiang Chengxuan and Shen Ruyan were both surprised. Earthwalker smiled and said, "Fellow Taoists, my senior brother asked me to give you this jade slip. There's an extremely profound sword divine power recorded in it. He said that it would be very useful to you, so he specially asked me to hand it to you." A very profound sword divine power. Yang Chengxuan and Shen Ruyan were stunned. In the next moment, they saw 3 words engraved on the jade slip. Heart Inquiry Sword. Just by looking at the name, Jiang Chengxuan and Shen Ruyan felt that the sword divine power recorded in the jade slip was definitely not an ordinary inheritance. As if reading their minds, Earthwalker couldn't help but continue with a smile. "To be honest, senior brother also let me and junior sister Yan comprehend this sword divine power. However, it was a pity that junior sister Yan and I did not have such talent and could not comprehend the profundity of this divine power. However, senior brother said that this divine power is suitable for you. It should be of great help to your strength." "Is that so?" Yang Chengxuan and Shen Ruyan looked at each other. Since Heavenly Lord Chuan Yang asked Earthwalker to give them this jade slip, they naturally wouldn't refuse. After thanking him, the 2 of them put away the jade slip. After that, the 2 of them prepared to leave. However, at this moment, Earthwalker said to them again, "Fellow Taoists, the demonic calamity is about to arrive. I believe you know very well what this means. The reason why we have not gathered everyone to face the demonic calamity is that the Heavenly Lords have yet to calculate the exact location of the demonic calamity breakout. However, according to my senior brother, this matter will take at least a year or at most 5 years. The Heavenly Lords will definitely be able to calculate the exact breakout point. At that time, you and I will probably have to go to that battlefield. So, in the remaining time, I hope the 2 of you can make arrangements early." Yang Chengxuan and Shen Ruyan knew that Heavenly Lord Chuan Yang must have asked Earthwalker to remind them. After thanking him again, they did not hesitate and immediately left the Hidden Sword Palace. Soon they returned to Mount Mystic Tai. After returning to Mount Mystic Tai, the 2 of them immediately told the Jiang family about the demonic calamity. After that, they returned to Xunaming Peak and began to study the jade slip Earthwalker had given them. Previously, they had only roughly read the contents of this sword divine power. Now that they had returned to Xunaming Peak, they had plenty of time to read it carefully. After reading it, the couple was shocked to discover that this sword divine power called the Heart Inquiry Sword was not an ordinary divine power at all. Instead, it was one that specialized in attacking the enemy's weakness. If the opponent was hit, his weakness would be magnified infinitely, implicating the entire body. In the end, it would snowball into an avalanche that could not be controlled. Most importantly, if one wanted to cultivate this divine power, they had to have extraordinary aptitude and comprehension. These 2 qualities were indispensable. Coincidentally, Jiang Chengxuan and Shen Ruyan were probably the best in the 9 Essences world in terms of aptitude. Especially Jiang Chengxuan. In the entire cultivation world of the 9 Essences, who else could condense a zenith nascent soul other than him? Not to mention his background and aptitude that had been upgraded by the system many times. He was not something any cultivator could compare to. As for Shen Ruyan, not to mention her flawless nascent soul aptitude, just the fact that she was the Heavenly Lord Thunder matriarch in her previous life, her aptitude was definitely not bad. So, from a certain point of view, there was indeed no one more suitable to cultivate this Heart Inquiry Sword than them. Heavenly Lord Chuan Yang must have guessed their background, which was why he handed this divine power to them at this moment. Firstly, he wanted to repay the 2 of them for guarding him. Secondly, He wanted them to have more foundation and strive to have more ability to protect themselves in the upcoming demonic calamity. After all, no one knew better than the heavenly lords how dangerous the demonic calamity was. Even they themselves could not guarantee that they could survive the calamity that involved the entire world. Time passed day by day. One day, half a year later, Xianxia, who was comprehending this heart inquiry sword, suddenly emitted a mysterious aura. Swoosh! A sword mark appeared on the ground in front of him. Immediately after, the sword mark spread out like a virus. Swoosh! Wherever the sword mark spread, it first cracked and turned into piles of powder, as if it had suffered hundreds of thousands of tons of pressure. This scene shocked Xianxia, who was also comprehending the heart inquiry sword. She couldn't help but turn to Xianxia and say, "Husband, you succeeded." "Yeah." Xianxia slowly opened his eyes. He smiled and nodded at Xianxia. "I'm almost at the beginner level. Next, if I want this sword divine power to unleash greater power, I still need to comprehend it further." As he spoke, Xianxia stood up, casually took a branch from the side, and gently stabbed at a boulder beside him. Swoosh! An extremely small sword hole appeared on the boulder. But soon, with the sword hole as the center, countless cracks quickly spread in all directions. In the end, with a crash, the entire boulder shattered into piles of powder and scattered. "What?" Xianxia's eyes lit up. She had seen clearly just now that Xianxia did not use any dharmic power when he stabbed with the tree branch. He purely relied on the sword technique. He hit the weakest part of the boulder, causing the surrounding structure to collapse on its own. It even turned into a pile of powder from the weakest part. Powerful, it was simply too powerful. One had to know that this was only the power of the beginner level. If he could cultivate it to perfection, how terrifying would its power be? Ordinary peak nascent soul cultivators would probably not be able to withstand a single strike from him, right? At this moment, the couple could not help but look forward to seeing how much power this sword divine power could unleash. With Xianxia entering the beginner level, Xianxia also entered the beginner threshold in about 2 months. 3 years later, the two of them had taken a huge step forward in their attainments in this sword divine power and reached a relatively high level. Before this, their strength was about the upper middle level among the grand cultivators. Now their strength had truly reached the level of a grand cultivator. However, cultivation-wise, they were only at the mid-stage of nascent soul and had yet to reach the late stage. Xianxia had not even reached the 6th level yet. In addition, it was worth mentioning that in the past few years, their Jiang family had added another golden core cultivator. That person was not Jiang Reni, the head of the family, nor was it his second brother, Jiang Renquan. Instead, it was Jiang Rendao's son, Jiang Yuncheng. This kid's temperament was extremely impressive. His Dao heart was abnormally firm. With his accumulation and participating in several battles in the past, he finally surpassed his eldest uncle and second uncle, as well as the other disciples of the Jiang family, and became the 4th golden core cultivator of the Jiang family after his father, Jiang Rendao, the elder, Liu Linglong, and Jiang Anren. If Shen Yuanlong and Shen Dayaming of the Shen family were included, the Jiang family would have a total of 6 golden cores. In addition, although Jiang Reni did not successfully break through to golden core all these years, he reached the false core realm. It was believable that it should not be too difficult for him to break through to the golden core in the future. As for Jiang Renquan, Jiang Yunru, Huang Linger, and the others, their cultivation level was actually not far from the golden core. However, the Jiang family's current foundation was actually not very strong. But it couldn't be helped. The Jiang family's foundation was originally weak, and cultivation itself was by no means an easy endeavor. Even if they did not lack any cultivation resources, they still had to accumulate foundation over a long period of time. However, according to the current situation, as long as nothing happened to Xianxia and Shen Ruyan, the future of the Jiang family was still very much worth looking forward to. At this moment, the couple had just gathered the Jiang family and told them some things when the communication Jade slips on their bodies lit up. This was the special communication Jade slip that Earthwalker had personally given them before they left the Hidden Sword Palace. Even if there were thousands of mountains and rivers between them, as long as you were still within the range of the northern border, the message could reach you directly. At this moment, The couple had just finished reading the contents of the communication Jade slip when their expressions changed. Tang Beisheng seemed to have sensed something and asked with a solemn expression, "Did something happen?" Hearing his words, all the Jiang family cultivators present looked over with concern. Jiang Chengxuan and Shen Ruyan looked at each other. In the end, Jiang Chengxuan said, "Heavenly Lord Chuan Yang personally sent us a message. He said that he had already predicted the time and place of the demonic calamity. This demonic calamity would erupt in 4 years. As for the location, it's somewhere in the Nova waters." What? Hearing Jiang Chengxuan's words, everyone's expressions changed drastically, although they were already prepared for it. However, at this moment, the news of the demonic calamity erupting still gave them a huge pressure. Even Tang Beisheng, who was a nascent soul cultivator, had an extremely ugly expression. Everyone knew that a demonic calamity was not like a demon beast knot. This was a disaster that involved the entire 9 essences cultivation world. Be it scale or danger, it was countless times larger than the demon beast riot. After all, the other party's goal was to destroy everyone, mortal or immortal. They would not compromise, nor would they negotiate. All that they cared about was destruction. So, if they weren't eliminated entirely, it was very likely that the human race would be doomed. Granduncle, did Heavenly Lord Chuan Yang say anything else? At this moment, Jiang Rendo could not help but ask. For example, how many people does our Jiang family need to mobilize? How many cultivators do we need to send to participate in the battle in the entire state of Jiang? This was also a question that everyone present was very concerned about. Instantly, everyone, including Tang Beisheng, looked at Jiang Chengxuan again. Jiang Chengxuan nodded. My wife and brother Tang will definitely go. As for you, Jiang Chengxuan paused for a moment before continuing. Other than leaving a golden core cultivator to guard the family and deal with any accidents that might happen, the others have to go with us. Among Violet Palace, Foundation Establishment, and Qi Refinement cultivators, good candidates have to be chosen to come with us as well. In short, in this demonic calamity, the Jiang family, including the Shen family, must mobilize more than 80% of our manpower. As for the other sects and families in the state of Jiang, they are no exception. They all follow our standards. Hearing Jiang Chengxuan's words, everyone's expressions turned abnormally solemn. They did not expect that they would have to mobilize so many cultivators in the state of Jiang alone. What about other places? Would there be more? There was no doubt about it. After all, strictly speaking, the number of cultivators in the state of Jiang was undoubtedly much fewer than in other states. Over the years, the main reason why the state of Jiang became famous was because of Jiang Chengxuan and Shen Ruyan, who were comparable to grand cultivators. In addition, the Tao Seeking Academy they established allowed many cultivators in other states to know a lot about them. At this moment, everyone could already imagine how large the number of cultivators involved in this demonic calamity and the overall scale of the battle would be. In a battle of this level, no one could guarantee that they would be able to return alive, including Jiang Chengxuan and Shen Ruyan. At this moment, Jiang Chengxuan turned to look at Jiang Anren and said, "Anren, regarding this demonic calamity and the preparations for the war, I'll let you personally make a trip to the various sects and families to send the instruction." "Yes, Shifu." Jiang Anren immediately accepted the order with a solemn expression. Then Jiang Chengxuan looked at Jiang Reni, Jiang Rendao, and the others. "It's up to you to decide who my Jiang family will send out. This time, I will give everyone a month. In a month, everyone must be prepared to go to the Nova waters with me." "Yes." Jiang Reni, Jiang Rendao, and the others also accepted the order solemnly. A few days later, under the Jiang family's decree, the entire state of Jiang was bustling with activities. From the Jiang family and the Shen family to the Jade Water Sword Pavilion, the Heavenly Yue sect, the Ganyang sect, the North Cloud sect, and so on. All forces above the Foundation establishment had to obey the decree. For this reason, as a nascent soul-perfected lord, Tang Beisheng even personally went with Jiang Anren to back her up. Regarding this decree, no forces in the entire state of Jiang dared to say no. A month later, around Mount Mystic Tai, huge battleships that looked like wild, ferocious beasts were connected into a long dragon. There were 6 level 5 battleships and more than 20 level 4 battleships. As for level 3 battleships, there were more than 100 of them. With Jiang Chengxuan's order, all the battleships and cultivators set out. Not long after, streaks of dazzling light flashed across the sky. After a while, all the lights left the state and flew towards the Nova waters. A few months later, when Jiang Chengxuan and Shen Ruyan personally led a group of cultivators to the Nova waters, they found that countless cultivators had already gathered there. Among them, there were local cultivators from the Nova waters, as well as cultivators who had been summoned like Jiang Chengxuan. Looking up, Jiang Chengxuan and Shen Ruyan quickly found many familiar figures among the cultivators. Affected Lord Vast River, his disciple Guan Xinting, and the others. Other than them, they also saw Yan Wushwang, Earthwalker, and the others who had arrived before them. Soon, they arrived in front of Jiang Chengxuan and Shen Ruyan. After exchanging pleasantries, Yan Wushwang smiled and said, "Fellow Taoist Jiang, since you've just arrived, choose a fort here first. After you've settled your people down, come with us to the demon-slaying hall. By the way, the demon-slaying hall is a place built by our soul formation forces to discuss major matters." Jiang Chengxuan, Shen Ruyan, and the others nodded. Soon, Yan Wushwang and Earthwalker bade farewell, because they had other important matters to attend to. Perfected Lord Vast River said with a smile, "Fellow Taoists, if you don't mind, I'll bring you to choose a fort." Upon hearing Perfected Lord Vast River's words, Jiang Chengxuan smiled and thanked him. "In that case, thank you, fellow Taoist Vast River." As he spoke, Perfected Lord Vast River Guan Xinting and the others led Jiang Chengxuan and the others towards some forts. Through the introduction of Perfected Lord Vast River, Jiang Chengxuan and his group learned that the so-called forts in the area were actually temporary campsites, each with varying concentrations and attributes of spiritual qi. Some areas had less spiritual qi, while others had more. The spiritual qi in certain places was inclined towards elements like fire, wind, water, or wood. Not many outsiders, apart from local cultivators like Perfected Lord Vast River, knew these specifics. Following his advice, Jiang Chengxuan and Shen Ruyan chose a relatively stable fort. This site had an optimal balance of spiritual qi concentration and attributes. Most importantly, it was close to the core of the camp's array. Once something unexpected happened, they could rely on the protection of the temporary camp array. It was a rather safe place. After Jiang Chengxuan arranged for all the people he brought, he sent a message to Yan Wushwang and the others. Soon, Yan Wushwang, Earthwalker, and the others arrived at Jiang Chengxuan's side. Looking at the fort Jiang Chengxuan and the others had chosen, Earthwalker couldn't help but smile. "Fellow Taoist Jiang, the spiritual qi here is stable. It can be considered a pretty good fort around the core area of our temporary camp. Speaking of which, it's all thanks to fellow Taoist Vast River." As they spoke, they flew in the direction of the demon-slaying hall. The demon-slaying hall was a rather magnificent palace hall. There were even layers of restrictive arrays. Especially when it came to isolating all kinds of divine sense detection, it was even more extreme. Not to mention nascent soul cultivators like them. Even a soul formation heavenly lord would find it difficult to see through the restrictions and arrays inside. When Jiang Chengxuan and the others entered the demon-slaying hall, Jiang Chengxuan immediately realized that there were already many people gathered here. Furthermore, everyone present was at least at nascent soul. Among them were their acquaintances, Perfected Lord Flowing Snow and Perfected Lord Starsea. In addition, they also saw nascent soul cultivators of the Cao, Liu, and Lu families, as well as Pei Daoqi and the others of the Mingjin sect. Fellow Taoist Jiang. At that moment, Perfected Lord Flowing Snow and Perfected Lord Starsea, who had arrived before them, walked towards them. At this moment, there were two people following them. A man and a woman. The man was elegant and refined, while the woman was dignified and beautiful. Their cultivation was all at the mid-stage of nascent soul. As soon as both sides met, Perfected Lord Starsea smiled and introduced them to Jiang Chengxuan and the others. "Fellow Taoist Jiang, let me introduce you. These two are the supreme elders of the South Sea sect, Dugu Beifei and Sidu Xiang." Then he looked at Dugu Beifei and Sidu Xiang and smiled. "This is fellow Taoist Jiang Chengxuan, and Shen Ruyan I've mentioned to you before. This is fellow Taoist Tang Beisheng, also the supreme elder of the Jiang family. TVE long heard that fellow Taoist Jiang and fellow Taoist Shen are extraordinary. Seeing you today, you really live up to your reputation." Dugu Beifei immediately cupped his fists warmly at Jiang Chengxuan and Shen Ruyan. At the same time, he did not forget Tang Beisheng, who was beside them and greeted him politely. Hearing this, Jiang Chengxuan also smiled politely and cupped his fists in return. Fellow Taoist Dugu, you flattered me. However, my wife and I have long heard of your reputation as the two South Sea immortals. It is truly a joy and an honor to meet you here today. Jiang Chengxuan was no longer the novice who had just advanced to nascent soul, unaware of his peers at this cultivation level. At the very least, he and Shen Ruyan had heard of these two before. They were considered rather righteous cultivators. Most importantly, although their cultivation was only at the mid-stage of nascent soul. According to what Jiang Chengxuan knew, the two of them had once obtained a very special joint attack technique in the early years. Once deployed, it immediately allowed them to exhibit strength beyond the mid-nascent soul stage, reaching the level of a grand cultivator. So, many cultivators actually regarded the two South Sea immortals as a late-stage nascent soul cultivator. While Jiang Chengxuan and the others were talking, some more cultivators walked in from outside the demon-slaying hall. In the blink of an eye, the number of nascent soul cultivators in the demon-slaying hall reached more than 100. It was at this moment, several extremely powerful auras suddenly appeared in everyone's divine sense inside the demon-slaying hall. Everyone immediately turned to look. Then at the head of the crowd, 4 figures appeared, standing quietly, their silhouettes as vague and imposing as gods. They were the Soul Formation, Heavenly Lords of the Northern Border. Heavenly Lord Purple Flame, Heavenly Lord Infinite Ocean, Heavenly Lord Everlasting Mountain, and Heavenly Lord Chuan Yang, who had advanced not long ago. The 4 were in charge of leading this crusade against the demonic calamity. At that moment, Heavenly Lord Purple Flame said, "The reason why I gathered you here this time is to discuss with you how to deal with the demonic calamity. However, before that, the first thing we have to do is to ensure that there are no spies from that demonic cultivator." Demonic cultivator spies. When they heard Heavenly Lord Purple Flame's words, the expressions of many people froze. Knowing that the nascent soul cultivators had been falling to the demonic path one after another, they all thought that it was necessary to check everyone present. Otherwise, once the demonic cultivator spy really found out about some of their methods to deal with the demonic calamity, the casualty on the human side would be unimaginable. This was not a joking matter. So, not long after Heavenly Lord Purple Flame said that, cultivators expressed their support. What Senior Purple Flame said makes sense. Senior Purple Flame, please screen us to ensure that there are no demonic cultivator spies among us. As everyone finished speaking, Heavenly Lord Purple Flame no longer hesitated. He raised his hand and waved. Buzz! In the void, a treasure mirror that was emitting layers of light appeared. It was the level 6 pure Yang True Treasure, the Grand Sun Mirror, that he had refined with Heavenly Lord Infinite Ocean and the others. Seeing the sudden appearance of this mirror, the cultivators present immediately revealed panicked expressions. However, before they could do anything, a dazzling golden light suddenly spewed out from the mirror. It was majestic and brilliant. It instantly swept past the bodies of everyone present. In an instant, Jiang Chengxuan and the others immediately felt an extremely gentle power that seemed to caress their bodies. It actually made their minds immediately tremble. However, at the same time, 7 or 8 people from the crowd suddenly let out miserable screams. Thick black demonic qi surged from the bodies of these people. In the demonic qi, there were also ferocious roars that struggled crazily, as if they wanted to break free from the light of the Grand Sun Mirror. Hiss! Many people could not help but gasp. They really did not expect that there were actually so many demonic cultivators hidden among them. If they were careless and skipped this step, as long as they thought about the possible consequences, they could not help but break out in cold sweat. HMPH. At the same time, Heavenly Lord Purple Flame snorted coldly. In fact, even he did not expect that there were actually so many demonic cultivators hidden among them. 7 or 8 was already a lot. At that moment, a cold light flashed in his eyes. He did not show any mercy. The Grand Sun Mirror instantly spewed out an even more intense light. The screams suddenly became more intense. In the next moment, the bodies of the demonic cultivators instantly turned into piles of ashes. Their body and soul were completely eliminated. This scene immediately caused everyone present to gasp. It should be known that these were 8 nascent soul demonic cultivators. Yet under the mirror, they couldn't even withstand a single breath before they were completely annihilated, both body and soul. One could imagine how terrifying the power of a soul formation, Heavenly Lord combined with a pure Yang true treasure was. Buzz. Right then, Heavenly Lord Purple Flame raised his hand again. More than 100 phantoms suddenly split out from the Grand Sun mirror and landed gently in the hands of everyone present. Yang Chengxuan, Shen Ruyan, and Tang Beisheng immediately realized that a mirror had appeared in their hands. A layer of hazy treasure light flowed on the surface of the mirror, emitting an extremely mysterious aura. CCHUOE/OGO-UL. Senior Purple Flame this is. At that moment, someone could not help but ask Heavenly Lord Purple Flame. Heavenly Lord Purple Flame said slowly, "What you have is a mirror created by my pure Yang true treasure, the Grand Sun Mirror. It can help you investigate if any of your cultivators have fallen to the demonic path. The usage method is also very simple. You just have to let them look at the mirror in your hands. If the other party cultivates a demonic technique or has the aura of a demonic cultivator, the mirror in their hands will react immediately. On the contrary, it means that the person is fine. However, this mirror is only useful to cultivators below the nascent soul. After using it, the mirror will disappear. Therefore, before you use this mirror, you have to make appropriate preparations." At that point, Heavenly Lord Purple Flame paused for a moment before continuing. "Now, we can discuss how we should deal with this demonic calamity." Hearing this, everyone, including Jiang Chengxuan, could not help but perk up. They knew that the most important part had finally come. At this moment, Heavenly Lord Infinite Ocean, who was beside Heavenly Lord Purple Flame, suddenly pointed at the air. Then an extremely huge sea map appeared in front of everyone. Heavenly Lord Infinite Ocean said, "According to my speculation and fellow Taoist Purple Flames, this demonic calamity should erupt at the curved sea." As he spoke, Heavenly Lord Infinite Ocean didn't forget to point at the curved sea to let everyone know what kind of place it was. Yang Chengxuan and Shen Ruyan were also surprised. The two of them did not expect that the starting point of the demonic calamity would be at the curved sea. At that time, almost half of the Nova waters will soon have many demonic cultivators appearing. What we need to do is to block them and try our best to keep the battlefield within the domain of the Nova waters. However, if necessary, we can extend our defense line, but at most, we must block them outside the Gorge of Heaven's Rift and absolutely cannot let them break through the Gorge of Heaven's Rift. Jiang Chengxuan and the others all knew that the Gorge of Heaven's Rift was a boundary between the Nova waters and the inland of the northern border. If they let the demonic cultivators break through the Gorge of Heaven's Rift and enter the states of the northern border, it would be an unprecedented catastrophe. At that time, countless people would die. Moreover, the most important thing was that for every person in the northern border that died at the hands of these demonic cultivators, the human race's foundation would be diminished. Conversely, using the blood and life of the human race, those demonic cultivators would become infinitely stronger. Once the human cultivators could no longer eliminate all the invading demonic cultivators, the northern border's human race would face a very dangerous situation. A situation that no one present would want to see. The best way to stop these demonic cultivators is undoubtedly through using arrays. At this moment, Heavenly Lord Infinite Ocean continued. Especially a super large level 6 array. This is also one of the most important reasons why we called you here. After all, to set up such an array, not only do we need many level 4 and level 5 array masters, but we also need a large number of cultivators. It's no exaggeration to say that every cultivator you bring, including yourselves, has a corresponding task. As he spoke, Heavenly Lord Infinite Ocean told everyone about the situation of the super large level 6 array. The name of this array was the 9 Heavens Starfall Array, with the 9 stars as the base and the spiritual vein in the sea as the guide. There were a total of 108 main array cores, 365 medium-sized array cores, and 108 small-sized array cores. In addition, there were 36,000 miniature array cores. The number of cultivators involved reached almost 40,000. Only with such an arrangement could the people of the northern border gain an advantage in this demonic calamity. Relying on the power of the Great Array, Even if they had to fight the incoming demonic cultivators for decades or centuries, it wouldn't be a big problem. If everything went smoothly, they had a 10 to 20% chance of ending this demonic calamity early. At this moment, someone suddenly asked, "May I ask the four heavenly lords, since this demonic calamity is a common calamity in the cultivation world of the 9 essences, why don't I see cultivators from other regions coming to the northern border to help? Could it be that in the eastern end, the southern wilderness, the western desert, and even the central plains, they also have to face the demonic calamity head-on?" Demonic cultivators, System Mission 2. As this cultivator finished speaking, the same question arose in the minds of the other cultivators present. All eyes turned to the four heavenly lords at the front. Purple Flame, Infinite Ocean, Everlasting Mountain, and Xuan Yang couldn't help but look at each other. In the end, Heavenly Lord Purple Flame said, "That's right. Since it's a calamity for the entire cultivation world of the 9 essences, other than the northern border, the eastern end, the southern wilderness, the western desert, and even the central plains are naturally unable to avoid the rampage of demonic cultivators. However, in each demonic calamity, our northern border is the first to face their onslaught. The invasion of the 9 essences immortal cultivation world always begins by breaching the northern border and then spreading to other regions. Therefore, in comparison, the scale of the demonic calamity in the northern border is indeed greater than the scale of the demonic calamity in the other regions. Moreover, our northern border is in the most difficult situation among the 5 regions of the 9 essences immortal world. CCHUOE/OGO. As for why they don't actively support our northern border when they have the capacity to. At that point, Heavenly Lord Purple Flame clearly revealed a hint of anger. That's because we cannot afford the price they demand for their support. What? Hearing these words from Purple Flame, everyone present, including Jiang Chengxuan, almost doubted their own ears. What did he mean by we not being able to afford the price for their support? What was the meaning of this? Many faces showed an expression of utter disbelief. After all, they were facing a demonic calamity, a calamity concerning the safety of the entire 9 essences immortal cultivation world. They actually. Jiang Chengxuan was also a little shocked. Indeed, no matter the time, such distasteful matters were unavoidable. Could it be that those people didn't understand the gravity of the situation, or that they didn't realize what the complete fall of the northern border would mean? Jiang Chengxuan found it hard to believe. But for them to offer help, they still demanded conditions so outrageous that even the heavenly lords couldn't agree. This was enough to show that if some things did not really happen to them, they would never wake up. At this point, Jiang Chengxuan and everyone present understood why cultivators from the northern border were looked down upon and considered country bumpkins when they went to other regions. A sense of anger unavoidably rose in their hearts. Had it not been for the northern border always bearing the brunt, would those other regions, comfortably positioned in the rear, have had such an easy time? At least in terms of losses, they wouldn't have been much less than the northern border. Without dwelling further on this topic, Purple Flame and the others began to arrange the setup of the array. Among them, Jiang Chengxuan and Shen Ruyan were also assigned the task of refining level 5 array discs, because they were both level 5 array masters. There were still about 4 years before the demonic calamity erupted. However, in fact, their time was still relatively tight. After all, setting up such a massive level 6 array was no easy feat. Fortunately, among all the cultivators present, there were many with level 3 or higher array knowledge. With everyone working hard and efficiently, they should be able to set up the 9 Heaven Starfall array in the shortest possible time. Not long after, Jiang Chengxuan, Shen Ruyan, and Tang Beisheng returned to the Jiang family's fort. Shortly thereafter, Jiang Chengxuan summoned everyone. Then he took out a mirror that was a part of the Grand Sun mirror and said to the people present, "Black Square, all of you, line up and walk past the mirror one by one." Though the Jiang family cultivators were puzzled by Jiang Chengxuan's request, no one dared to defy him. Starting with Jiang Reni, the family head, everyone walked past the mirror. Jiang Chengxuan and the others watched, relieved to see no reaction from the mirror. However, just as they were easing their minds, one of their Jiang family's guest cultivators suddenly emitted a burst of pitch-black demonic qi. Under the mirror's influence, he couldn't help but scream in agony as golden flames burned painfully on his body. This scene shocked many of the Jiang family members present. But some people immediately understood what was happening, and their expressions changed instantly. Not good, this person is a demonic cultivator. As these words fell, the rest of the people also reacted. The sinister demonic aura emanating from the individual unmistakably indicated authentic demonic cultivation techniques. It turns out that the mirror set up by their ancestor could actually identify demon cultivators. At this moment, the remaining few guest cultivators of the Jiang family's expressions changed drastically. Without saying a word, they turned to flee, but just then, a light snort resounded in their ears. Instantly, these individuals were struck as if by lightning, bleeding from their ears, noses, eyes, and mouths. However, Jiang Chengxuan did not rush to kill them, but instead placed his hand on each of their heads in turn. Soul piercing. Strictly speaking, this method was somewhat against the heavens, but Jiang Chengxuan felt that for these demon cultivators, especially those hidden within his own Jiang family, it was a necessary action. Soon, Jiang Chengxuan learned some things from these individuals, though nothing of significant value. Come to think of it, it made sense. Given the system implemented by the Jiang family throughout the state of Jiang, there wasn't much room for demon cultivators to survive. These individuals had infiltrated the Jiang family years ago. They had managed to remain well hidden until today, when they were exposed by the Grand Sun Mirror. Nevertheless, the necessary checks had to continue. Jiang Chengxuan then had Jiang Reni, and others call over cultivators from other sects like the Jade Water Sword Pavilion and Heavenly Yue sect. This investigation uncovered quite a few hidden demon cultivators. By the time Jiang Chengxuan and his group had finished dealing with all the hidden demon cultivators, more than half a day had passed. It was only then that Jiang Chengxuan, Shen Ruyan, and Tang Beisheng started assigning tasks to the remaining people, as per the instructions of Heavenly Lord Purple Flame and the others. They didn't go into too much detail, but warned everyone that the success of overcoming this demon calamity depended on this mission. Everyone present understood the gravity of the situation and quickly took on their respective tasks. At the same time, Jiang Chengxuan and Shen Ruyan returned to a temporary cave abode they had set up. Before they left the demon-slaying hall, the four heavenly lords had already provided them with all the necessary materials for crafting the level 5 array discs and array eyes. He also gave them the materials needed for the cultivators of the Jiang family to refine lower-level array discs. Moreover, the task assigned to Jiang Chengxuan and Shen Ruyan was one of the most critical array eyes in the 9 Heaven Starfall array, reflecting the great trust the four heavenly lords had in the couple. The couple exchanged glances, and without much conversation, they began their work. Just as they had told everyone earlier, this task was crucial for successfully overcoming the demon calamity. Therefore, everyone, including them, did not dare to be negligent. Ding! Just as Jiang Chengxuan was about to start refining the level 5 array disc, a system notification suddenly sounded in his mind. System mission issued. Host, please complete 2 array eye refinements. Upon hearing this system, Jiang Chengxuan's heart stirred. The task of crafting array eyes 100 times was precisely what he was engaged in. Moreover, the system did not specify the level of the array eyes, meaning he could work on any level, from the simplest to level 5. Thinking of this, Jiang Chengxuan immediately stopped what he was doing and took out some other materials. Upon successfully crafting a level 1 array eye for the 9 Heaven Starfall array, the system task progress jumped from 0% to 1%. Sure enough, it worked. Seeing this, Jiang Chengxuan was delighted. One had to know that with his current attainments in arrays, it did not take him much time to refine those low-level array eyes. Encouraged by this, Jiang Chengxuan swiftly completed 100 level 1 array eyes in less than half a day. Ding! At the same time, the system notification sounded in his mind again. Congratulations, host. You have completed 100 refinements of the array eye. You have obtained a chance to temporarily break through an array, an 8 gates heaven lock array set. Temporary breakthrough chance in array. Upon use, the host's array level can temporarily break through a major level. In other words, with Jiang Chengxuan's current array cultivation, once he used this chance, his array cultivation would reach level 6 in a short period of time. 8 gates heaven lock array set, a top-notch trapping array. It contains 9 killing arrays, 18 illusion arrays, and 36 trapping arrays. When these arrays are gathered, they can unleash the power of a level 6 trapping array. Jiang Chengxuan had not expected such a generous reward from the system. Both the chance for a temporary breakthrough in array cultivation and the 8 gates locking heaven array were exceptional treasures. Especially now, with the impending demon calamity, these rewards added 2 significant trump cards to his hand. Coupled with the level 6 constellation talisman he had previously obtained, he now possessed 3 level 6 powers at his disposal. Although temporary, these powers could play a critical role in turning the tide of battle at crucial moments. In the following time, Jiang Chengxuan and others kept busy with tasks assigned by the heavenly lords. Time flew by, and almost 4 years passed in the blink of an eye. On this particular day, brilliant spiritual lights shot up into the sky over the Nova waters. Each light represented a grand array. When these arrays were fused together by an incredibly powerful force, countless stars fell from the 9 heavens above. A power so immense that it could make any cultivator tremble erupted. At this moment, the 9 heavens starfall array, which they had spent nearly 4 years setting up in collaboration, was finally completed. Jiang Chengxuan, Shen Ruyan, Tang Beisheng, and perfected Lord Flowing Snow felt a profound sense of relief as the array was officially completed. It felt as though a huge weight had been lifted from their hearts. This relief also made them acutely aware that if they hadn't set up the 9 heavens starfall array, or if they hadn't completed it before the arrival of the demon calamity, something terrifying might have happened. In fact, their feelings were not wrong. Shortly after they finished setting up the 9 heavens starfall array, in the Nova waters, especially around the area of curved sea, massive waves of dark light began to spread. An extremely evil, cruel, and tyrannical aura suddenly surged from the black light. Crack! Crackling sounds echoed as pitch-black cracks appeared out of nowhere in the sky above. In an instant, endless demonic qi began to rapidly spread in all directions. Witnessing this, Jiang Chengxuan, Shen Ruyan, Tang Beisheng, and all the other cultivators' pupils involuntarily contracted in shock. A thought simultaneously flashed through their minds: the demon calamity had arrived. Buzz, buzz, buzz. At the same time, brilliant lights suddenly illuminated from various parts of the Nova waters. From a bird's-eye view, it was evident that across the vast sea, numerous island-like orbs of light rapidly connected with each other, eventually forming a gigantic web-like light screen. This was the sign of the 9 heavens star river array being fully activated. Countless black mists in the void began to evaporate and disintegrate, melting and dissolving rapidly under the intense light. However, there were a few areas that the light of the 9 heavens star river array did not cover. In an instant, large swathes of black mist infiltrated the sea and spread in all directions. Roar! 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 Amidst the terror, numerous agonized and ferocious roars erupted. Jiang Chengxuan and the others, standing within the array, quickly witnessed a startling scene. In the areas tainted by demonic qi, the normal sea creatures began undergoing violent mutations. Ordinary-sized fish suddenly ballooned in size, their fins, tails, and scales sprouting sharp barbs. Some even grew claws on their bellies and developed razor-sharp, scythe-like appendages on their sides. Their heads enlarged drastically, bristling with fierce fangs. Some grew several heads resembling various animals, cows, tigers, sheep, bears, and sprouted numerous twisted, menacing tentacles, writhing and fluttering terrifyingly. Jiang Chengxuan, Shen Ruyan, Tang Beisheng, perfected Lord Flowing Snow, perfected Lord Star Sea, and Earthwalker's expressions changed drastically. A thought flashed through their minds: this was true demonic contamination. It was imaginable that if low-level cultivators were outside the array, they would quickly transform into monstrous beings, completely demonized. Hadayalhasa. Just then, a series of wild and unrestrained laughter echoed across the Noah waters. Jiang Chengxuan and the other cultivators' expressions tensed as they turned to look. In the area shrouded in black light and dense demonic qi, dark battleships appeared. On those pitch-black battleships stood evil figures. These figures were surrounded by demonic flames, exuding immense power. Among them, 6 figures stood out as the most terrifying, each emanating an aura of soul formation, or in demonic terms, a demon lord. Behind them were hundreds of nascent soul demonic cultivators, and thousands of golden core demonic cultivators. Most importantly, alongside or behind these demonic cultivators were huge, ferocious monsters with eyes revealing madness and bloodlust, likely bred and tainted by demonic chi over years. The strongest of these monsters were also at level 6. Such a formidable lineup would have easily defeated the human cultivators had they not prepared the array in advance. Even now, with the array as a barrier, the situation was far from optimistic. Boom! Suddenly, the massive dark battleships, boosted by the power of the 6 demon lords and numerous demonic cultivators, collided fiercely with the 9 Heaven Star River array. A terrifying explosion resounded, sending huge, tsunami-like waves in all directions, pulverizing nearby islands, evaporating seawater, and instantly turning the mutated sea creatures into clouds of blood mist. Boom, boom, boom. At the same time, deep black beams of light struck the 9 Heaven Star River array, which responded by radiating infinite light. There were also dazzling stars that suddenly fell from the 9 heavens and augmented the array. In the blink of an eye, a series of terrifying explosions erupted in the point where the two sides collided. On the black battleship, a man clad in black dragon armor narrowed his eyes and spoke coldly. It seems the human race was well prepared. Our current assault is unable to breach their array. Another man with a black crescent mark between his eyebrows sneered and said, "What does it matter? It's just the dying struggle of ants. What we need to do is just to exert a bit more effort. I refuse to believe that with our strength today, we cannot break the defenses of these human cultivators." "You're right, fellow Taoist Wicked Moon." At this moment, another man in blood-colored armor said, "Why not let our juniors lead the sacred beasts and confront them first? If they can break through their grand array, all the better. Even if they can't, we can still weaken their array's power, paving the way for our eventual victory. I believe they won't disappoint us." Following his words, numerous figures, like a swarm of locusts, descended from the dark battleships toward the Nova waters below. Leading them were cultivators at least at the 7th level of nascent soul, not to mention several at the peak of the 9th level, and accompanying them were peak level 6 demonic creatures. Boom, boom, boom. In an instant, a huge explosion sounded again. The place where Jiang Chengxuan and the others were stationed was one of the most important array eyes, known as the Jade light-flying immortal array, anchored on the spiritual island of the vast river where perfected Lord Vast River was from. Thus, besides the Jiang Nation cultivators, the island also hosted the 2 South Sea immortals, Gudu Beifei and Sidu Xiang, and perfected Lord Vast River, the original master of the island. However, in order to protect such an important array eye, there were naturally more than 6 nascent soul cultivators. However, the other people's cultivation levels could not compare to Jiang Chengxuan and the others. They had only reached the early stage of the nascent soul. Their main role was to assist Jiang Chengxuan and the others. In the black light that filled the sky, countless figures with powerful auras suddenly descended. A small portion of them came for the Jade light-flying immortal array, which was the spiritual island of the vast river. Jiang Chengxuan, Shen Ruyan, Tang Beisheng, the 2 South Sea immortals, and perfected Lord Vast River narrowed their eyes. This was because they could sense that among the demonic cultivators who came, there were actually 7 of them who had reached the level of a grand cultivator. There were more than 20 mid-stage and early-stage, nascent soul demonic cultivators in total. In addition, the number of Golden Core and Violet Palace demonic cultivators was more than 2 to 3 times their number. The 2 South Sea immortals, perfected Lord Vast River, and the other cultivators felt immense pressure. At this moment, Dugu Beifei said, "Fellow Taoist Jiang, fellow Taoist Shen, and fellow Taoist Vast River, looking at the current situation, the demonic cultivators clearly treat our place as one of the breakthrough points. Needless to say, their attacks will definitely be very ferocious later. At that time, I hope that we can do our best to stop their attack. We can't let them have a chance." Everyone present, be it Jiang Chengxuan, Shen Ruyan, or perfected Lord Vast River, clearly approved of Dugu Beifei's words. Everyone could not help but nod. Just as perfected Lord Vast River was about to say something, outside the spiritual island of the vast river, among the demonic cultivators who came, someone suddenly took out an item that looked like a conch from their bodies and blew it. Woo-woo! The low, rhythmic sound seemed to stir something in the sea. Numerous mutated sea creatures began to emerge, and without hesitation, charged towards Vast River Island under the influence of the sound. Bang, bang, bang! Instantly, the first wave of mutated creatures burst into clouds of blood, mist under the power of the Jade light flying immortal array. Yet undeterred and fearless, more and more creatures continued their relentless charge towards the island.